Well, hello once again. Today I am going to do my part two on the Fruit of the Ground Creationist. And today it's going to be about a person named Faith, Hope, Love. Yes, that's her actual screen name. It's a cool mantra, but it's not mine. I don't know which one she refers most, Faith, Hope, or Love. I would probably take Love, but hey, that's just me. So what I want to do is I want to actually kind of go over, what she's been messaging me, why it's low fruit on the ground, and so this maybe her page a little bit, her feed. By the way, hi Enlighten. Let me broadcast. Hey, oops, hang on one sec. One sec. All right, let me broadcast you fine gentlemen real quick. One quick. Sorry about that, Isaiah. Okay, there you go. Hey Enlightened, Isaiah. Hey Enlightened, you still have a lot of background noise in your mic. So, but anyways, how are you guys this morning? Good. Glad to
Doing good
hear it.
myself.
No, I don't care. Just asking.
Oh, wow.
Platitudes. No, I'm kidding. No, seriously. How are you guys?
I'm good. Sitting at home.
Um, did you Isaiah, did you remember yesterday we were talking when I was outside? You said you messaged Tommy. Did you get a response on that? What we were talking about? Just out of curiosity.
Nope, no
Okay.
response from Tommy.
Yeah, just curious. All right, so let me show you what I got here. I'm gonna screen share this. Now she already did address this, I will admit, but I don't know if it's really that great of an excuse. So wait a second. Got all these tabs open. See? Okay. Can you guys see my screen? Yes, no?
Yes, I can.
I can see
Okay.
it.
Yes, I can.
All right, because yesterday, the other day I did some math videos, and I didn't have anybody in here because nobody likes math besides like three people, and didn't realize I wasn't screen sharing. Now I think the message kind of got across, and I thought I annotated in the card with those little note things, but I guess that didn't work. So, anyways, um, what happened was she had posted me this, okay, originally, and this is about the carbon-14 dating that was Miller's work that we're all familiar with, and through 236, right? And then she posted this one, which is really a slew of different things about carbon dating, about the living, the mollusk, being dated old because of reservoir effect, baby edema, things, we've already talked about, which I'm going to go over a list a little bit because, it is fruit on the ground. But then when I responded to that one, she actually deleted it. She deleted that whole post because I had actually explained to her that baby edema, as we know, was not found until 1977, and the journal cited by Hovind in the Creationist Handbook #9 that I actually have was 1975 from Alaska. Well, no, it was 1975 from Siberia, and I assure you, Siberia is not Alaska. And unless we invented time travel, this claim is debunked. I told her that I did speak with Hovind on it. Hovind said he wouldn't be using it in the future if it's incorrect, and he knows it is. And then, she brought up the leg and the flesh one, which again was two different mammoths found 8 years apart. Wasn't the same mammoth. We know that one. And then she had talked about, some of the problems with the radiometric dating with argon, argon potassium, with the xenoliths and the inclusions. Anyways, so I asked, why did you delete your post? And she basically responded. Let me go back here. This was her excuse. Tell me what you guys think, and then we'll go on to some other stuff. She said, I have already told you I deleted that comment before I seen your reply. I deleted it as it wasn't really relevant to the original post. However, I had seen your reply. I wouldn't have deleted it. Now, she seems like a genuine person. I'm not going to bash on her like I do some other people. She seems like a nice a kid. She's an adult. And she actually looks like an ex of mine, which maybe I have a soft spot for, She looks like somebody that I used to
Well,
kind of date.
Steve.
What's that?
Well, Steve, backpedaling is backpedaling.
Yeah, well, okay, let me ask you guys, who deletes comments, right? Why would that specific comment be deleted when it was in line with the radiometric dating, right? Her first one was about the collagen, from Mary Schweitzer's work. A lot of it dealing with specifically with Miller's, which was already been falsified, which we can get into a little bit. I'm not going to have a very long video, but do you guys think it's odd that after I totally refuted her questions and explained to her, no, the first two are the reservoir effect. We know why we can't date marine life because there's a different concentration of C14 to C12 in oceanography, in the oceans, than it is in the atmosphere. That's due to bicarbonate. We also know that Hovind was wrong. We know that two of his claims for certain, actually I know all of them for certain, but two of them that in this particular case, he cites the wrong thing. The citations do not back up his claims, which is why he says he's not going to use them in the future, but he can't, quote, go back in time to change them. He says, they're already published, I can't fix them. But that's fine. I just want to know if you're going to use them in the future, and he indicated that he would not. So if Hovind realizes these are mistakes, and I've explained to her that they were mistakes, why do you guys think she would delete her comment? Who does that? What do you guys' feedback on that?
She's a female pillbox. She'll delete anything that shows she's wrong on anything.
Well, that's possible, but that's the first time she ever deleted anything. So, no, actually, you know what? I retract that. Let me get maybe you might get your some feedback on this, Isaiah, because I think you were involved in this as well. Actually, I'm pretty sure. Wait. Not this one. Not this one. But what I'm going to show you here in a second. If you go to her page, do you remember this post that we had commented on to her? Because I think she deleted her comments on this one. Remember just how we relate to chimps and cousins? Let me present it.
No, Tommy shared that post. It was on
Okay.
Tommy Hawk's page.
Okay, I wanted to make sure because I know somewhere we had commented to her, and you're right, I think it was on Tommy's Hall, so she didn't delete anything on this one. So maybe it's just that one. So I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt, and I'm not going to say she's Poe. I'm not going to say she's Pillbox. We will go over this one here in a few, by the way. But that was on Tommy's. Okay, so if that's not the case that she, like a Pillbox, why would she delete that specific comment?
Here, let me break down that post that she's doing right now. Let me see there. It's that one on March 17th.
This one? Yeah.
Shared public. Yeah, that one.
Okay, we can move on to that one. Go ahead.
Yeah, let me see. Researchers admit there is no evidence of any common ancestor between humans and chimpanzees. Okay, she doesn't really cite which researchers by name or something, so we can look them up. What I can see here. It's the original missing link. Okay, now I know this researcher is irreputable because has no reputation, or a bad one at least, because no reputable researcher uses the word missing link to describe transitional fossils, because there is no missing link. Every fossil is a transitional fossil. The extinct ape that is the supposedly common ancestor of chimps and humans, but we still don't know what it looked like. Well, even if that were the case, not yet. We still have all these other intermediary steps that we can get to, and eventually, if our predictions are correct, we can find it.
I don't know if they would never use the term missing link, but they don't want to use it in the same way. There are times, like even with, what was it, Isaiah, your photo, Darwinian Macellus, is a missing link between Streptococcini and Haplorini. They call it a missing link because it's basal to both, but it's not the same way creationists use that term. It's basically to relate different lines of phylogeny, right there, Isaiah?
Yeah, I mean,
yeah. So
they just took it out of proportion. I mean, and the media did too.
Well, the reality is, we're going to have missing links if you want to use it for, for phylogeny. That's going to happen. We can't relate every single lines. But what they seem to neglect is the ones we do have are millions and millions of different ones. I mean, all of them do relate in some ways. They're all transitional. They all have to relate different lines of phylogeny. They all have to relate different lines of, or different ways we compare, homologies and morphologies. So, yeah, the way the media and the way these creationists use that term is completely incorrect.
Yeah, that's why you don't find this kind of things. Well, you'd find them in popular science magazines, but not in actual scientific journals.
I don't know. Like I said, they may use the term, but they wouldn't use it in the same way. I don't know if they would use it completely, or not completely, not use it. I'm not sure about that. I don't know, Isaiah. What do you think?
I mean, I hate the way, for example, Daily Mail would blow it out of proportion.
Yeah, well, you're talking about the DK Daily Mail.
Daily Mail's a horrible source.
Yeah, they're pop science at best. They're not satirical like the Onion or World Daily News Net or whatever the hell that is. But yeah, the UK Daily Mail is not really the best source for technical kind of stuff. I would agree with you. But I mean, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say on a different subject, a funny post I saw the other day, and I remember it still. It's I don't know if it was like No Name or something, or Robert, what's his name? I can't remember which the user was, but What I remember him saying is like, fossils are bones. He actually said that.
Yeah, I don't know where you would get that misunderstanding from. I mean, obviously fossils are fossilized bone, but they're not bone anymore. They've been replaced by minerals.
Yes. All right, yeah. Okay, back on subject. So let's see. Continuing.
Go ahead.
Astonishing fossils are found everywhere, but the original missing link remains as hopelessly elusive as ever. Okay, if there is this obvious missing link, how come no creationist scientist has ever found it? Or if they have an idea of what it looks like.
I mean, if a creationist found it, it would never get out.
Well, I mean, there is okay. What they're referring to, there is she is right technically on this one. There is no known link. I'm going to use that word very cautiously here. There's no species as basal to both humans and chimpanzees yet. They're called pan-priori, which would be the name of the last common ancestor between pan troglodytes, which is chimps, and humans. So she is correct, and we know it was about 6 million years ago. Predictive modeling will say that if you go to literally timetree.org and type in the taxon pan troglodyte and Homo sapien, it'll come up to a last common ancestor about 6 million years ago. By the way, Faith, if you ever listen to this, that's called predictive modeling. That's one of the things that a scientific theory must do. So we know that pan-priori existed. I mean, we know scientifically that it had to exist. Now, what she and Tommy failed to do is realize that we have other things in Hominidia, which is Homordia, which we do know exist. We have found evidence, fossils, like Pyrolopithecus catalonicus, which was from 13 million years ago, 12 to 13 million years ago. So we know that was one of the last events of divergence in the great apes, which is Hominidia, or was Homordia, which is actually all the apes. I don't remember which one specifically. I would have to look that up. But what was the other one we actually found too? There's a few actually in that line. So basically they say, oh well, we don't have this one, but we're going to ignore all the ones we do have, which I find to be very disingenuous. You know, even the one that you have for your picture lot, not Lucy, but the other one, is a one that's basal to many of all the hominids. So go ahead. So, I mean, one of the things she had brought up before, I mean, to kind of get away from this particular post, and I'm going to go back to here real quick. You know, she was talking about the chimp chromosomes, the fusion site of 12 and 13, which was also 2A and 2B.
That was bad.
Yeah. And if you notice, she basically was shotgunning. She was posting so much stuff that had literally nothing to do with the telomeric sequencing, had nothing to do with the fusion. I don't know if I can actually find her post. I'm kind of looking for it right now because I don't want to misquote her.
It's on Tommy's page, but
I'm on Tommy's page.
One of her best, oh my God, this is the highlight when she was saying there's this many base pairs in chimp chromosome 2B. She got the numbers wrong. The numbers she put for 2B were actually the numbers that 2B would have if combined with 2A. I know this because I have the numbers.
I found her post. We actually broadcast it here in a second. I found it on the tablet. So because yeah, she makes the assumption for some reason that the order is okay. She says the change of numbers of the change of numbers of chimpanzee chromosomes 12 and 13 to 2A and 2B, which I'm not quite sure what she means by that. What does she mean by 12 and 13 to 2A and 2B?
Chromosome 2A and 2B are actually chromosome, I think, 12 and 13.
Yeah, they're the same thing. Right, they're the same thing.
The same thing.
Yeah, but she words it this way. They changed the number of chimpanzee chromosomes 12 and 13 to 2A and 2P. Well, they didn't change the numbers. This is another way of saying it. 12 is 2A and 13 is 2B. They didn't change the numbers. Those are both two of the same things. And she says the order was also changed to make a chromosome fusion plausible, whereas before the order was based upon the location in the chromosome. What?
She's making this shit up as she goes along.
What does that even mean, Isaiah? The order was changed to make a chromosomal fusion palatable. how very deceitful. I don't know how to interpret that. I'm going to bring this up because maybe
I mean,
it's
when you
easier
go
to
to
read it.
ensemble and you look at the karyotype, I mean, it'll have two after chimp chromosome 1. You'll have 2A and 2B. I think that's what she means.
But that's just a nomenclature. That's just a notational thing.
So it has a what's it called? I can't find the word for it.
I'm almost got
So
this.
it has an ortholog with human chromosome 2. I think that would be the word.
Well, it's not. It's what 12 is an orth. You're saying 12 is an ortholog to 2?
No, so chimp chromosome 2A and 2B can correspond with human chromosome 2. That's the other reason they put it in that decision.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah. 2A and 2B are going to be orthologs to human chromosome 2, obviously. Yeah, I agree with that. But I don't know the way she's just saying that it's just a number. They numbered it differently for evidence. No, that's not how it works. We don't just renumber, change the numbers because we want to, prop up the hypothesis that the paper, promoted, which wasn't even a hypothesis, it was actually confirmed pretty much. That's not how it works there, Faith. So, hang on. Again, I don't want to misquote her, and I'm trying to find this exact post from her. So give me 2 seconds. Yeah, let me just broadcast. By the way, let me know if anybody else comes in. I'm silent enlightened. Let me know if you need to be broadcast there. Okay.
No, I just had to take a phone call. That's all.
Okay, so let me screen share.
Though, if I had to guess, why? Oh, go ahead.
I was say this is his original post, and this is the comment. So I'm trying to find her exact comment. Here we go. No. Why is it so hard for me to find anything in these posts?
If you can remember a specific phrase she said, you can find it. Control F.
Well, I have. Well, that's true. Yeah. Well, search down. I don't know. Let's see. Change. Here we go. Yeah. Okay. Can you read that? She says,
I see it.
Yeah, they changed the number of chimpanzee chromosomes 12 and 13 to 2A and 2B because it's, like you said, they're orthologs to human chromosome 2. And the order that was also changed to make chromosome fusion plausible, whereas the order was based on the location of the chromosome. How very deceitful. I have no idea how that's deceitful. I have no idea how that even has a damn thing to do with this. But it is ordered by a similar content human chromosome 2 that has more similarity to chimpanzee chromosome 9 than to 2A and 2B.
I've heard. See, she got the claim wrong. She got confused. There are some genes near the fusion site which actually have an ortholog on chimp chromosome 9. This does not mean that human chromosome 2 is more similar to chimp chromosome 9. She got confused.
All right, so that's only near the fusion site. Is that one of the DX type genes? Or some other genes?
Well, no, there are some other genes. I forgot what they're.
Okay. Okay, that one I hadn't heard before, so that one I did not know. Thank you for pointing that one out to me. That makes a lot of sense because I don't know how in the world 2A and 2B, which would comprise 2, is saying that human chromosome 2 is more similar to the 9. That would be absurd. We can see that they're related to 12 and 13. So there is also a huge difference between human chromosome 2 and chimpanzee chromosome 2A and 2B. Well, what?
Oh, there's not. It's a 96% similarity.
Yeah, I'm like, what is the huge difference? This is not conclusive evidence, all but deceit to fool the masses. No, Faith. The only one who has actually been deceived here is you buying into these creationist claims that I don't think you have a full understanding of. This paper, which I'm actually going to go find real quick while you guys talk about this. So 1 second, because I want people to know where this paper is at. Am I presenting? No, I'm not. Give me a second.
Oh, while you're at it, can you find the chimp karyotype at Ensemble? Because I can't screen share.
I can probably find it just by bringing it up. Sure. Let me find the page first, then I'll bring up the karyotype. So 1 second. Okay. If anybody wants to find this paper here that actually this is referring to, I'm going to present again. It is called The Origin of Human Chromosome Number 2, an Ancestral Telomere Fusion. This is the actual full thing that you can go in PNAS. You can go to Wikipedia and go to the very bottom, and it gives you the citation. It gives you the full text. It's not very long. It's about 4 or 5 pages. Most of that is this reference and pretty little pictures. So the body of the text is only about 2.5 pages. It's not a big read. It does use some, obviously, some scientific jargon. It is not as bad as you think. You really don't have to know what a cosmet is, per se. You don't even have to know what these little funny things is. I mean, they're not that hard. It's just saying 5', then this is your nucleotide sequence, which is going to be thymine, thymine, adenine, guanine, guanine, guanine. This is called a telomeric sequence. All telomeres have them in your chromosome. You usually have a shit ton of them, and then basically as you get older, they get smaller, and that's why we age, actually. So this is the 5' to the 3' end, and then on this particular reverse, it's called a head-to-head arrangement. This is going backwards, and this is going to be the cytosine. So anyways, this is basically saying, what happened was these chromosomes from 6 million years ago fused to give rise to human chromosome number 2. That does not mean that this is when humans were created. Okay, big mistake. In other words, the chromosomal fusion site did not just create humans. There's many other factors that go into there, but it did arrange the chromosomes different. It did arrange the karyotypes differently, and we'll show you the karyotype that you were asked for. You want to see a chimpanzee karyotype?
Yeah, I mean, I would go to Ensemble. Ensemble has the best one.
Well, I mean, we just go with images. Okay, so you want to compare it to human? Here we got this one.
Yeah.
This is the one that they have. Is it the same one that Ensemble has? Because I've seen this one very many often.
That's a good one. I mean, if what she said about 2B being nearly, well, slightly larger than human chromosome 2, we should see that in the karyotype, but we don't, meaning she was bullshitting.
Okay, well, let's go over this a little bit. This is the karyotype, and for Faith, who probably has not seen a karyotype is just a way the genes are stained and photographed. Okay, it's basically a snapshot of your entire genome. I use the term loosely. I use it almost synonymously with genome when I talk about a karyotype. It's just something that I've always done for some reason. When we were talking about these things in layman's terms, then when I say karyotype, I refer to the genome. But technically, the karyotype is actually what you're looking at here. Okay, so we're looking at human chromosome number 2. This is going to be this long one right here. This is chimps. This is humans. The first one. This is chimpanzees. This is gorillas. And this is orangutans, right? So in chimps,
yeah.
These two right here, okay, were fused together and then formed this one right here, is basically what this paper is saying. And she's saying it's the same to 9. Well, here's 9 there, Faith. This is human. Boom. This is chimpanzee 9. I don't think they're the same size. I would say it's about twice as long. Wouldn't you guys?
Yeah. Hold on. Let me see.
Looks like it.
Can you see it, Isaiah? Did he go?
I can see it. Yeah.
Okay, so would you agree that it's twice as long?
About.
Yeah, so I mean, that claim right there, Faith, is completely nonsensical. I don't even know where you would even get that from. Now, if you look at actually the differences between chromosome 2 and chimpanzee, let's not do karyotype, but let's just do chimp 2, 12 and 13, human chromosome number 2. Let's see if they do a comparison here. This one's pretty good. That's kind of blurry, right?
I can read it.
Well, maybe we just going to reload it. Yeah, that was a really bad picture. I'll just real quickly though. Well, there we go. Okay, so for Faith, this is human chromosome number 2, and these are 12 and 13, which you said has been renamed 2A and 2B because this is 2A and this is 2B. Basically, number 2 has been broken down. These things on the end are your telomeric sequences, the telomeric repeats, the T, 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 G, 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 T, A, A, G, 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 whatever the hell it is. So human chromosome number 2 is the only chromosome that has these telomeric sequences in the middle here next to the centromere. Okay, and the only reason we have the telomeric sequences here is because these two things were a head-to-head fusion. Here's the head of the telomere, and the other one, I believe it was an enzyme called telomerase, isn't it? That basically breaks down.
Yeah.
Telomerase, and the telomerase breaks down, and that what the telomerase tries to prevent these types of fusions. They're not mythical. They're not uncommon. AIG says, or excuse me, Creation.com says the mythical, Tompkins, quote, mythical things. Well, no, if you go to the Google Scholar and you type in translocation and what is the other thing? There's Robertsonian translocation or translocation, and there's another term you can use. I'll just type chromosomal fusion in there, and you'll find many types of chromosomal fusions that happen today.
That's what I don't like about Creation Ministries. They poison the well by calling it mythical from the outset.
Yeah, exactly. By fiat, they're mythical, and yet Tompkins, who is a geneticist, knows they're not mythical. He knows that they do exist. But I just wanted to show her that. Let me actually even get a bigger picture of the actual genes on here. Go ahead, by the way. I'm going to cut you off there, Elaine.
Oh, no, not much else I was going to say. It's like you can't just stack the deck against us like that and expect to have a fair and objective argument. That's not how it works.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind hyperbole a little bit, but I mean, at least be honest and be correct. And to say that they're mythical and they don't exist is completely incorrect. I could go to Google Scholar right now and type in chromosomal fusion, and you're going to see numerous papers comes up. But let's look actually at what she's claiming here. Saying that this is not evidence of a chromosomal fusion. Well, Faith, I don't think you have a background in genetics. We don't either, except for maybe Isaiah really doesn't have a background in it, but he knows it exceptionally well, and I know it decently enough. Enlightened knows, Crafton about everything, so he knows about genetics and biology. But anyways, so if you look here at the human chromosome number 2 and the chimpanzees, and we just saw that in the karyotype. This actually came off that karyotype. It's the exact same thing. And this is what she's actually saying, the breaking down the chimp chromosome 2A and 2B. I can see what she was getting at. I just didn't like her argument that we had to rename them because of this. But if we look at the actual bands here, the genes, these are the actual genes on the chromosome themselves, Faith. Do you see that they are identical? I mean, literally across the board, they're 96% identical?
Yeah, and the map even shows where the, I guess the transposition takes place. I don't know if that's the right word for it. They call them reversals. Translocation. There you go. Thank you.
Translocation, yeah. Robertsonian translocation is the technical term. Yeah, this is the fusion point right here. Mm-hmm. And you can compare it to the other ones too. I mean, we know that we're 99% related to all other humans. We're also 98.5 to 99 point something percent related to chimpanzees. Even if you go back further to gorillas and orangutans, which were also called Pongo, these bands line up pretty damn well. There are obviously going to be more differences as you go down the line, which again demonstrates evolutionary biology. Predicts that the further you go away from the lineage of human, the more differences you're going to have, and these differences accumulate. You're never going to find like a difference in chimpanzee here because they're closely related to us than you are, that you're not going to find. Well, excuse me, the other way around. You're not going to find a difference like an orangutan that you won't find here for the most part. I mean, obviously mutations creep in, but we're talking genetically. They're going to be very, very similar because these things are promulgated. See how they just promulgate here? So
I kind of get the feeling that Faith is only going to be satisfied if you were to watch a live video feed of the ribosomal translocation take place, like on a live feed or something like that.
Well, chromosome, not ribosomes where
chromosomes. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. I knew what you meant, but so I mean, yeah, Faith, yeah, you're completely misled here because we can physically see with physical evidence and science that these genes match up across the board. And the only explanation of this is I like to use vertical gene transmission for this fact that we have to be linearly by descendants related to these lines. We have to be. There's no other scientific explanation. Literally, it is like saying you're related to your sister, but not related to your mom. You can't have it. You both, or your dad. I mean, you have to have some kind of parental link to be related to somebody else. And so, if we're related to chimp, we must must have a common ancestor. There is absolutely no other scientific explanation whatsoever. The best they can come up with is what's called intelligent design, but intelligent design doesn't discount common descent. It still has to recognize that common descent exists. The only difference is they try to think it's because of an intelligence design, a teleological design, rather than a theonomic nature design. So, but other than that, Faith, as you can see, this is actual evidence. There's no disputing this. Now, if any creationist wants to dispute the actual evidence, we'll get a bigger panel in here. A bigger panel, and you guys can have at it. But just to dismiss this evidence that's blatantly obvious that we are related is disingenuous, because this is the actual scientific paper. It's been out since 1991. It has never been refuted. Tompkins did not refute it by any means, and we're going to go over that in a second. I'm going to turn over to Isaiah Tompkins' work. Do you want to go over what he had that was slightly, actually not slightly, but incredibly wrong in his paper for Creation.com?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I mean, in the original paper, one of his claims was this fusion site is in the middle of a gene. Now, this is wrong because this gene is in a family of genes which are always subtelomeric when they're on autosome. Now, his work actually essentially proved there's a fusion, not disproved it. And then another one of his claims, which I thought was interesting, he said fusion site is not unique because there's a bunch of telomere-like sequences on the chromosome. But when you take the sequence of the fusion site and do a black analysis on it, where you can see what sequences are missing, the only hits you'll get are telomeres and the fusion site. So that's another lie. Now I can't remember all the other claims, but there was it's in an area of a lot of genomic activity, but of course, because most of the telomere is gone now, so of course all the genes are going to move closer. He knows he's just being dishonest. He knows that this is supposed to happen. He's just being disingenuous because he knows his readers are morons.
Now, one of the things he also reported too is he pointed out that the telomeric sequence in the subtelomeric region were degenerate, which the paper itself points out as well. I don't remember the specifics, but that is not a refutation. We know that it was degenerate. We also know that the gene did not encroach upon the telomere, as he suggested in his paper, and he also said the gene was highly expressive. Based upon what? I have no idea what he bases that on, because he doesn't say in the paper. But I mean, he made it up. I mean, he literally made it up. So there's nothing in his refutation at all that discounts that paper, because if he could discount that paper, he would have published, because this is science. This is not religion. This is not theology. This is something that can be demonstrated. If he had a legitimate refutation, he would have published and made Creationist so popular. They would have loved him. They would have funded him to no end, because he had an actual scientific explanation. And I think I just found this real quick. This isn't really that great of a thing, but it basically shows just what we're talking about. I mean, this is the telomeric repeat down here in the telomere. This is the subtelomeric region before that. This is the degenerate TTA GGG repeats in the centromere. But it's not really the best thing, because I don't know what most of these enzymes really are, because I'm not a cancer research person. So that would leave that to obviously Sam. So, but yeah, again, just to summarize, his work is not reputable. His work is not even correct, and literally he made shit up. Because if he would have had something, yeah, he would have definitely published that. Anyways, hey Wayne, how are you today?
What's up, guys?
Let's go to some of the other things she had talked about. Let's see what else we can find here. I've got too many tabs open.
Well, there was the one thing I did want to point out. I mean, I know it's not a subject at the moment, but it was an interesting conversation I had the other day with another user.
What's that? Go ahead.
Offender. Yeah.
Who is this?
His name is Alan Clark. He was a repeat offender over at, do you know the Farangula blog?
Yes, of course. That's a PZ Myers blog.
Oh, very nice. So anyway, we were getting into a conversation. Apparently, it's like he was debating with someone that says that like humans cannot create life. That was his claim. And so I went into research that, and I found out through through my research that apparently virology has made great leaps in that area by creating a virus from a cell-free system in a laboratory setting. And this particular virus, they found out, was like in relation to the mimeovirus, which is said to have a larger genomic library than the average bacteria. And he says, no, because virus doesn't count as life because it needs a host to feed off of. So then I corrected him. I said, wait a minute. Scientific consensus states that if something has the potential for life, which means it has the capacity or ability in the future to live, then by scientific definition, it's alive. So humans have created life.
Yeah, I mean,
scratch.
Technically speaking, there's two ways to look at it. Obviously, a virologist is going to have a different opinion than maybe a bacteriologist or something. So possibly, there are numerous conditions for life. But however, the general consensus now is what you said. If an egg, an ovum, a sperm, those things are living entities for all practical purposes. And virus, I mean, under that thing, I would consider it alive as well too. So.
And it easily shut him up enough because after I showed the research to him, I even showed him the paper. I mean, and I caught him doing a couple things. I caught him quote mining first of all, and then I caught him moving the goalpost. And he says, no, this is what life is. And I said, no, if it has the potential for life, then it is by all scientific definitions alive.
Yeah, but all they would say is, well, yeah, but it took intelligence to do that, which is the dumbest thing ever. I mean, it diminishes our abilities to do things. And we also created alien life too. I mean, remember when we created the life that was based upon certain nitrogenous bases plus X and Y, which I don't what the technical terms for X and Y were, but they were not your normal nitrogenous bases that's found in DNA. It wasn't just based on A, G, T, and C, and so it was considered to be foreign, and then they used the term alien that way.
Yeah, I mean, I've looked over the criteria of life, and I don't know them all off the top of my head. I mean, I know a few of them, like metabolism, reproduction,
respiration, yeah.
Those lists, but it's like, but the list itself, I'm looking at it. It's like it's so narrow. It really narrows down the definition of what constitutes life, and it can potentially exclude things that are considered to be alive or has the potential for life.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with you.
But anyway, that was the conversation I had with him, and he hasn't spoken about it ever since. I didn't save the conversation. Oh.
What a bummer.
Well, it is a bummer. This is the same guy who said that. I'm trying to remember off the top. No, that's not appropriate. The things you said, they're not safe for work anyway.
Let's go back on faith here, because like I said, this is my part 2 in the Fruit on the Ground creationist thing. Again, this is her. I'm going to share her comments because I don't want to misquote her by any means. I don't want to straw man. Like I said, she actually looks pretty kind of cute. I mean, she really does remind me of somebody that I knew very well that I dated, which is probably why I have a little affinity. But anyways.
Oh yeah, she's cute.
Yeah, and she's really. I mean, she is nice. I mean, I'm not dogging on her. She's been polite in most cases, but her science is horrible. And she's being propped up by Tommy as one of the new kids on the block that, for the science, to go to the science person, the true empiricism type.
Oh, is she serious?
Dumb as hell,
yes.
But she's cute.
Yeah, Tommy looks like in some of his comments that he's trying to make her into literally the clown car posse science person, because I find she's able to parrot stuff but not understand. We all know people like that. So anyway, she's in this first post here. I mean, she's talking about neo-Darwinism evolution isn't based upon empirical evidence. Okay, there's this. I mean, where do you go from that? This again, creation is fruit on the ground. Faith. I don't know any neo-Darwinists, to be honest with you. The last one I know was Ernest Mayr. He was a neo-Darwinist. But other than that, I don't know anybody in modern times in modernity that is a neo-Darwinist. Do you guys?
No. Calls himself a Darwinist.
No, but no. I wait. Go back to the screenshot.
Is she a younger creationist?
Hang on. Yes, she is.
Oh.
No. I noticed something funny in her quote. Go back to her screenshot.
Go ahead.
She calls it pagans of the ISIS bloodline didn't have a theory of evolution. Okay, so that's your first mistake. They called theory like an educated guess.
Well, we haven't got there yet. We haven't even got there. We're still on the first sentence.
We're still on the yes. It's like, do you know how empiricism works, Faith? If you're watching this.
So even on the first sentence, neo-Darwinism is not is okay. Evolution, as we all know, is just literally, and we're going to use this till the day we die, is a function of popular genetics. You can phrase it any way you want. Yes, Tommy, you can say it's hereditable traits. You can say it's heritable characteristics. You can say it's a change of allelic frequency. They all relate to population genetics because evolution is a function of population genetics. Isn't based on empirical evidence. Well, no, the way this works, Faith, is when we observe something, when Darwin observed certain things like in the Galapagos Islands, the finches and things of that nature on his expedition, this is what he based his initial theory on. And I'm going to use the term loosely on this one because he did not formulate a scientific theory. He had an idea of how things worked. Darwinism, which is no longer applicable. We don't use Darwinism. But it is based on empirical evidence. We observe something, we form a model that explains the observation, and can make a predictive ability, like I showed you with the timetree.org, which I'm actually going to go to right now since I have access to a computer. And what is it? What is it? Timetree.org. Yeah. It is still screenshot, right? Yes.
Yeah, I can see.
Okay. All right. So if you go to timetree.org, this is what's called predictive modeling. This is how it works. This is how they made this software. So if I type in, actually, I think you could type in this chimp. You don't want to type pan troglodyte, but chimp and human, which is going to be pan troglodyte, taxon, and Homo sapien. So you hit search. I think you could type chimp. Yeah. So what this does is it says, oh, look, it finds the last common ancestor based upon predictive modeling. This whole thing in the background back here, these colors, that's the whole phylogenetic, well, not the whole, but it's basically how many millions of species on the phylogenetic tree and how they relate to each other. Overwhelming evidence that related, because any way you look on here, everything that's supposed to be there, that's specific to that, whether it be cladistics or phylogeny or any type of nucleotide sequence you want to go by, it all works out. There's nothing that here that's over here, there's nothing that's here over here. And it says pan troglodytes versus humans. The last common ancestor should be 6.6 million years ago. That was that pan priori. And then these are all the studies you can go to that talk about this. Pretty cool, right? We could not have this modeling if the evolution didn't work. This is a testimony that evolution theory does work. This is how similar to how they found Tiktaalik. They put these things in there. They said the last common ancestor, what we're looking for, needs to be in this layer. Guess what? They went out there, they looked in that geological layer, and they found Tiktaalik. That is also how they found Paralipithecus catalonicus. Same principle. They said this is where we need to look, and then scientists in Spain found it. So, yes, Faith, it does work. Let's go back to a thing here. Where am I at? Okay. So let's go on. So it's based upon an ancient pagan myth. No, evolution is not based upon a pagan myth. Evolution is based on population genetics. Okay, ancient pagans knew nothing about genetics, I assure you. DNA wasn't even discovered until 1869. Mendelian inheritance wasn't until the late 1800s. Mid 1800s? In that ballpark? You know, when did George Mendel do his work? Anybody know? It was somewhere in the 1800s. But, you know, they had nothing to do with population genetics. So the pagans of Isis bloodline didn't have a theory of evolution. Again, as evidenced by what Enlightened was saying, a theory here with the quotes is meaning conjecture, an idea. That is not what a scientific theory is. A scientific theory is a well-established body of evidence that has been well documented, substantiated, and confirmed by observation and experimentation. These things must take place for a scientific theory to exist. They must be confirmed. You cannot have scientific theory of evolution if it has not been confirmed. At that point, it'd be hypothesis or conjecture. So they accepted a self-evident fact that human has arisen from lower primates. Well, I don't know what time she's talking about here. Primates, I mean, it's just enlightened. When is she talking about these pagan religions? Because obviously pagan primates wasn't came about till Carl Linnaeus.
She's wrong on that. The people who did believe in somewhat I know what she's trying to say, but it wasn't Darwinism, and it wasn't genetic evolution. They believed that people were similar to fish, and that's pretty much it. So we had some of the same characteristics or qualities as fish, but they didn't go as far as to say, oh, we are descendants of chimpanzees or X, Y, because they didn't have the science yet. So, but yeah, she's right and she's wrong, and I think she has the wrong people group. She said something about well, she just said pagans. To be more specific, it was I think it was the Greeks first, but they didn't go as far as to the scientific extent that we had now because they didn't have the science. So
Yeah, no, and you're right. She mentions that. She is right. Anaximander was a Greek that believed that things did evolve, meaning they changed. Okay, Faith, they changed. He did not accept that life evolved from a quote type of prebiotic soup. He had no idea what prebiotic meant. Think about what you're saying here. I mean, Faith, do you realize that you're talking about something around the time of 500 to 600 BC, talking about a type of prebiotic soup? No, that is not what Anaximander believed. Anaximander thought that things evolved, basically, but not the modern definition of the term evolution. He just meant change. Things got over time different. When we use the term evolution in biology, it's hang on one second.
what? What? I'm not going to say anything until you read the bottom because I'm just in disbelief. Because even creationists believe in that, but I won't say anything yet.
All right, so I don't think she even I don't think she's even really reading her own post here. I mean, how bad this really is. But we're going to go down here, and he believed the first animals developed from sea slime that evaporated with the sun rays. Well, again, that's not prebiotic, but that has nothing to do with biological evolution as known today. There's no talking about population genetics. There's nothing in there about taxonomy. Yeah, I mean these are ideas were out there. There was it Augustine de Hippo, thought about it, and there was many other people, but it wasn't until Charles Darwin actually came and explained that by natural selection how some of these came about, and he also promoted a teleonomic reason why these things came about that didn't require theology. So she says there's basically no difference between the theory of evolution proposed there and the account of Milesian philosophers who lived in the pagan culture of ancient Greece. What? I'm at a loss for words here. How can anybody shine a light on this? How she could possibly in the world believe that the modern theory of evolution, based upon physical evidence and population genetics requiring genes, has anything to do with the Milesian philosophers who lived in the pagan culture of ancient Greece? Anybody?
I can I can sort of explain this in about like 2 minutes. So
oh yeah, you do. Yeah. Let Wayne do it because Wayne. By the way, Faith, Wayne, if you ever listen to this, Wayne is a ex-younger creationist as of literally 2 months ago. Okay, yeah. He was a very staunch younger creationist until he educated himself and realized that no, the whole everything about younger creationists is a lie, and we could demonstrate it using science. But go ahead, Wayne.
But I noticed that a lot of younger creationists, they don't have anything new. So yeah, you probably saw this like 1,000 times. And so she's giving old evidence, and not only do they give out old evidence, but their viewpoint of science is kind of outdated too. Because from what I've seen when I've talked to a lot of young earthers, they all say, especially the flat earthers too. Flat earthers and young earthers have a lot in common. They always say, well, that's just a theory, and they don't really understand how people come to a consensus or a theory in modern science. And they also don't understand that modern science is self-correcting. So yeah, even though some scientists in the past were wrong, the science is always right. But the way how the scientists in the past interpreted it may have been wrong because they didn't have the technology or the instruments we have today. For example, the age of the Earth. A lot of creationists, younger creationists, they don't believe science can properly tell us how old the Earth is, which was true in the past. But the reason why the age of the Earth keeps on changing is not because scientists need more time for evolution. It's because as time progresses, our instruments in finding out how old the Earth is gets better and better, and we can see farther and farther out in space. And so that's why the age of the universe, and that's why so many things in science is changing, because it's correcting itself.
Yeah, and that's exactly. Yeah, exactly. Our technology gets better, science gets more refined. And she's like, that's right. Darwin stole his idea from pagan religion. I don't think Darwin even heard of Anaximander. But even if he had, it makes absolutely no difference. Nothing Darwin wrote about has anything to do with paganism or what you're talking about. What Darwin had talked about is basically not mutations, but natural selections acting upon something. He didn't know what it was. We found out later there were mutations and phenotypes, but he called it something else. But he knew that natural selection was selecting naturally the organisms that were better suited to their environment. And then the ones that were not suited to their environment based upon selective pressures died out. And as Fiona likes to say, dead things don't reproduce. That was one of the biggest things that he contributed to. So explain to me, Faith, which you'll never do because you'll never go into a hangout, you said. Which, by the way, if you don't want to go live, I will go into off air. I don't mind. You have to explain how natural selection and differential reproduction, which are concepts that were completely foreign to any of these pagans, have anything to do with each other. How did Darwin come up with Darwinism and natural selection when that literally is basically how the environment is acting upon something at the time, again, we didn't know, but is basically selecting between two organisms which one is better suited to their environment to reproduce. That is not something that is found in Anaximander's or the pagan's philosophy. Okay, and this whole thing about sea slime evaporated by the sun, I mean that has nothing to do with evolution. So I mean, this is this extremely poor understanding of what biological evolution is. And moving on a little bit, I don't want to make this video too long. We get anybody else come here and talk this? Where did Isaiah go? Oops. Okay.
He said he went out to lunch.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Let me stop broadcasting.
Oh God, check the chat box. To the right.
That's right. He went to lunch. By the way, there's plenty of room in here. I think it was Max was wanted in. One second.
I think, going back to the start of this video, when you started it, I think one reason why she may have deleted her initial post was because, on some level, I think there is a degree of honesty in her, because if she honestly believes on some level, or is convinced on some level, that you reasonably answered her claim, or refuted her claim, then she would have deleted it and not kept it up. The dishonest person would have kept it up.
No, because an honest person would have kept it up, and then would have said, you know what, Steve, those were really good explanations of why, that I shouldn't be using these claims anymore, because these things are very, very antiquated claims. That's why I'm calling her fruit on the ground, because these are not worth actually having a full hangout to really have a good discussion. These are just stuff we've addressed a billion times. They're simple, they're trivial. Well, we're going to move on a little bit. I'm not going to say what's going on in the side chat, but hey, Wayne, awesome, congrats. I'm very proud of you. You're just amazing me. You're like one of my favorite people on the Google Plus community for how far you've come since over the last year.
Thanks, Steve. And I actually got to tell you too, man. I'm working soon. Like you see my website. I'm gonna have a small section especially for younger creationists, and it's not going to be me dogging them out or saying this is dumb or whatever. But it's just going to be me just coming from their perspective. And, I used to believe this stuff too, and here's the evidence and et cetera, et cetera. Just try and walk them through it, and not just try and dog them out and cuss them out and that's dumb. Because when you say stuff like that to people, they don't respond well, and I don't think we're going to change their opinion on saying stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I want to bring up something real quick as an aside. I can do that because this is my hangout. There is a person in the community, and yes, I'm going to name names. His name is I Am Outbound. I have him blocked, and I have very few people blocked. I can name literally the people I have blocked on 2 fingers, him and NeoCloud. And I blocked him the other day. This is a new atheist that's been around, he says about 8 months, but I've never seen him, who is using the most vile tactics to try to deconvert people and try to have arguments. His reasoning is completely unsound. His understanding of philosophy and logic is abysmal. He thinks religion is a mental illness. He cannot have a civil discourse. I think that people, I'm sure I'm not the only one that's blocked him. I know people are running from his hangouts. He is the antithesis of how I want to engage with people anymore. Because yes, I got early on I did my got it out of my system and could get a little overheated, and sometimes it's fun. I admit that. But if you really want to convert somebody, and I do that with people that I know I have no chance with, Obviously Nephilim free. I'm never going to change his mind. He's too stupid. Or Tommy Hall. Well, I don't get upset with Tommy Hall. But I mean, there are some like Brandon Nicole. And Samuel King, who I lost my shit with, and because it's fun because these people are just so stupid, right? But if you really want to convert somebody out of young Earth creationism or explain to them why the science is right, you're not going to do that by being antagonistic. It's a very, very poor way to approach them. Had I been antagonistic toward Wayne would have never listened to anything we had to say to him. Why would he? So, yeah, I completely agree with you on that. And I had to throw that out there because just be mindful of this guy I am outbound. He is a very, very dangerous person in the community. So, oh, man, I'm just getting all kinds of messages. So, sorry about that. Anyways, let's move on with Faith a little bit. She says, she claims about a week ago, I believe the Lord had told me to get out there, and I really used this account much, but I had noticed I had 77,000 views, and I thought I should post more here. I now have over 83,000 views. Wow, I guess I should keep posting. Well, Faith, I don't know what God told you or not. I have no claim in that realm. Okay, all I can tell you is that God did not tell you to post things about young Earth creationism. I can tell you that for a fact because young Earth creationists, I can demonstrate it for a fact is wrong, and it would be contradictory. Sorry, made up words here. Contradictory that God would have you go out and promote something as demonstrably false as young Earth creationism. The only reason he would possibly do that maybe would be the end justify the means, saying that to get you out there so people like us can lead you out of this and give you the facts. That would be a good argument. Go ahead. What? Sorry, go ahead. Anybody? Oh, great. Isaiah. Oh, JoJo's here. Wonderful. Am I still broadcasting?
Hola.
All right. Hey, Ola, pay attention here. So anyway, yeah, I mean, Faith, maybe for the sake of argument and arguendo, that God led you, to post more, but maybe isn't the reasons you think it is. I think Wayne would probably concur that position is not untenable, right, Wayne?
Yeah, it's a bad position, and along with that, and it's almost, and I'm sorry to say this, it's almost comparable to the flat Earth view. And when we go around and when we do try and get people evidence for the young Earth view, etc., it actually draws people away from God.
No, I mean my position that maybe God led her here to engage with people.
Oh yeah, probably yeah. Yeah, I guess so, because I don't think God would go around and tell her to, tell people stuff that isn't true. So
right, yeah, unless there's a reason for that, which would be for us to correct her what she says. Okay, so we're going to move on down a little bit. I want to get into this one too a little bit. This is a post that is a reference to Mary Schweitzer's work, which I'm not going to get into too detail with because we've done it numerous times, but she says it's odd to think that she didn't think that this fossil mustn't be as old as it's assumed. Wow. I will talk about this for a second, then turn it over to you. Faith, it was not assumed that it was 65 million years old or 66 million years old. That was not an assumption. That was a factual thing because of evidence, because they dated the rocks around it. An assumption is something we assume without evidence. Or I should say more specifically, something we assume because we have no choice but to assume things. Or we're going to do it for an experiment, we may make certain assumptions. We did not assume the age of the stuff. We don't assume anything like that in science. We demonstrate because we can do that. But things are built upon that. So if I've already demonstrated that the rock layer is 65 million years old, and I find something in 65 million year old rock, it's no longer assumed. It's been factually, conclusively verified. Now, if she wants to get into radiometric dating, by all means, we could do that. And she does have a post later on about that, I think. But this is actually something that is scientifically verified, that the dinosaurs were that old. She conclusively said the dinosaurs are that old. What made her paper so significant was it was a paper that kind of flew in the face of how we thought fossilization occurs. But her paper explained it by using iron, by different, was it ferrous 3+, ferrous 2+, I don't remember. That was a preservation mechanism that allowed collagen and quote-unquote soft tissue to be preserved for that long a time. Other scientists have verified this now. they have verified, I think, 2 or 3 times that what she has found is legit, and that her explanation is legit. It doesn't change the fact that these fossils were that old. There is no indication, none whatsoever, that they are less than that time period. Anybody want to add to that?
Well, what I've seen and noticed with a lot of young girlfriends, and I put it in side chat too. It's not really. I mean, the science and stuff like that is good. I know she's going off the science and stuff like that, but really, and I know especially for me, it was more like a theological problem. And then when I finally did come to the realization, like, oh, this stuff can't be true, then I just rebuilt my theology again, and I was fine. I still have my faith. I'm still a Christian. I may believe some things that a lot of Christians don't believe, but I think the science actually helps the theology a little bit better because I think you said this, Steve. You said, if there's a God, he want you to know how he really did do it, not how he coulda, woulda, shoulda.
Yeah, and you were able to incorporate that. Unfortunately, like for somebody like Isaiah, he was not. He was a young Earth creationist that once he realized that young Earth creationism wasn't true, he just completely denounced religion and became an atheist, which actually is the most common thing. I find I can think of 10 people in our community that are young Earth creationists because they couldn't reconcile the fact that they've been lied to for so long. It's a very difficult thing to come to terms with. But let's see if we can move on with her a little bit. Oh yeah, I want to address this one real quick.
So the science. I just want to say one thing. I'm not gonna make this like a religious thing because you guys are clearly talking science. So the science didn't hold up, so they left Christianity, or is it because of this verse is used? So they figured, they assumed that they couldn't, reconcile with Christianity. I wonder what went through their mind during that.
Yeah, from what I gather, I can't obviously stick my mind into theirs, but what they've told me, and they've all told me similar things, is that after being lied to for so long about young Earth creationism, when people actually realize that is not true, some people have a break, and they just said, you know what, if they've lied about this, then I really can't accept any of it, and they reject it outright as a blowback, as a self-defense mechanism. I understand that. I'm not here to deconvert anybody or tell them their religion is wrong. That's not what I do here. But I can understand why people lose faith because they, wow, I'm sorry, I'm getting messages. Let me tell them I'm broadcasting real quick, 1 sec. But yeah, that's what's happened to them, Jojo, so it's not that uncommon. Let me broadcast, let me go here. Okay, one of the things she brings up is something that Tommy Hall brings up, and he's talking about seasonal polyphenism, which is a type of polymorphism. Okay, and a polymorphism is basically just saying that there's different types of ways a phenotype can be expressed, and if it's based upon the environment, then a polyphenism is just a type of environmental polymorphism, if I remember correctly. I haven't looked into this too much, but I think that's correct. And he's trying to say that she's trying to say that seasonal polyphenism or polymorphism either that explains what we see with the peppered moths rather than natural selection. No, I'm gonna do my Fiona interpretation here. No, Faith. No. Anybody can do that better?
So what was I gonna say? Young Earth creationism. And I'm not gonna make this a religious thing. I just wanted to say this.
Hey, wait. Hang on.
Young Earth creation.
Man, you're playing the video in the background there. Okay, so, anyways, no, Tommy, and no, Faith. These polyphenisms do not take the place of natural selection. They have to use natural selection. They're a modification of natural selection. They are promulgated by natural selection. You cannot have polyphenism or polymorphism without natural selection. And Tommy writes, remember when evos, meaning people that believe in evolution, obviously, and I should say, they don't believe in evolution. No evolution is true at fact because we don't believe in evolution, just like we don't believe in gravity. We know gravity exists. So anyways, organisms like moths evolve via natural selection. Well, there's many different ways things evolve. Evolution just, again, means that there's a change in the frequency. This could be caused by various mechanisms. Natural selection is just one of them. But the polyphenism can also be hereditable. It could be passed on from generation to generation, the different phenotype. But the phenotype is based upon the genotype. All phenotypes are manifestations of a genotype. So there has to be some kind of genetic component there, obviously, for polyphenism. I don't know the exact details, but the point of fact is it doesn't take the place of natural selection. It has anything to do with Darwinism, because he's always talking about Darwinism. Darwinism says the organismal change is directed by natural selection, acting upon genes in a population. Well, that's only one thing that Darwinism says. But anyway, this is not a refutation of natural selection. Natural selection still occurs. If you read up on this stuff, it talks about natural selection, because you have to have natural selection for this stuff. And so who argues about natural selection? I don't understand that as a new thing. I know Fido has some minor discrepancy with it, but even when you read his arguments about coextensial properties, it really doesn't make that much difference. It's not negating natural selection. He's not arguing natural selection doesn't occur. It's just a philosophy of how to, what affects what. So we're going to go down a little bit more. You guys still hanging in with me here? You guys all quiet and stuff.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
All right.
I'm just ordering pizza.
Oh, good for you. All right, let me broadcast it then. Okay, so she also talks about, again, since we're this low fruit on the ground, things we've dealt with a million times. She talks about, the Triceratops horn, and it's Miller's work is what it is, again. And the carbon-14 dating to go back and say they were only, about 30 million years, or 30,000 years ago. Well, I've explained to her that Miller had taken these fossils from the Carnegie Museum of Natural History. They had been preserved. They had shellac on them, and shellac is an organic compound. That will mess up your time period. That'll mess up your carbon dating, obviously. And they had told him that. They said, this has already been treated. This is contaminated. We can't carbon date it. But he said, go ahead and do it anyways. He didn't even tell them, what the material was, because they were so small of fragments. And so when they did carbon date these things, they got wildly inaccurate things because they had not been calibrated for the right time. They didn't know, they did, take into account the organic shellac because they didn't know what it was. Well, I mean, so they did know what it was, but they didn't take it into account because he just said go ahead and run it as is. And so basically all that stuff was bogus. We all know this. Miller's work was completely discredited. There's a great video on it by Portholer 54, I think, is the one that debunked that. There's been other ones, but we know where that came from. So anyways, this is also going into what she talks about carbon-14 for the dating of Schweitzer's work, which they won't do because there's no reason to. Why do we need to carbon date stuff we know is automatically older? We know we can only carbon date to 57,000 years or so, sometimes up to 100 with what's called accelerated mass spectrometry, AMS, but carbon dating is not used to date fossils, dinosaur fossils. So nothing she puts in this post makes any sense when you read actually the story what happened. This is a well-documented story. It's very well understood that Miller was disingenuous, that he used contaminated fossils. So I don't know what else to say on this. Anything else you guys want to add? This is, again, low-hanging fruit, so I'm not going into that much detail on it because we've already addressed this stuff numerous times. Anybody? Okay.
Well, why is it so important to them that dinosaurs live within the last 10,000 years?
Because that's a good question, but the reason, and I'll turn over to Wayne because he was a young Earther, so maybe he can say what he thought it was. But I think it is because for them to have the narrative of Noah's Ark, and they have the global flood, and the narrative of the biblical account of Genesis, that is the only way that they would fit into that, based upon Usher's work and the chronology of James Usher. When you look at the facts and the data, though, obviously there's zero evidence to support that. And so what they have to do is they have to mislead people. They have to create fabrication. I'm not saying Faith is doing this. I believe Faith is sincere. I believe that she honestly has looked at this stuff, and this is what she gets out of it. The people that are doing the deceiving are, Tompkins and Humphreys and Sarfati, Hovind. These people knowingly have something of deception because I've read their stuff numerous times, and there's no possible way that somebody could convince me that they don't know in certain cases they're really being deliberately deceitful and disingenuous because we've seen it happen too many times. We know what this looks like when people deceive, and they fit every pattern of that. Even when I told Hovind that those claims were wrong, did you notice in the video he never actually said, I agree that they're wrong and this has been addressed and I won't be using them. He couldn't have the wherewithal and the honesty to do that. That is a sign of a dishonest person. He wouldn't say that I was wrong. He admitted that he couldn't go back in time and fix it, which is a tactile admission of them being incorrect. But he's just too disingenuously dishonest to actually say that he was wrong. But what do you think, Wayne? Why were you so adamant to try to convince people that dinosaurs walked the earth when it's completely absurd? Wayne? Okay. Wayne, where'd you go, man? Anyways. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Apparently, isolation is the most important factor in speciation. Well, depends. In allopatric speciation, yes. Geographical isolation is the most important factor in allopatric speciation. There are other times as well. There's peripatric and sympatric. Sympatric has nothing to do with geological isolation. The other ones they kind of do have some kind of isolation of the populations, but it depends on the location. But a neo-Darwinist evolutionist told me, really? Wow. Again, I like to know who this person is because I've been around this community for a while, and I will tell you, I honestly do not know any neo-Darwinist evolutionist.
I personally wish that these kind of people, they say, well, this evolutionist said that or this scientist said that, have the courage to name who you are referring to, so that way we can confront them with this instead of just leaving us in the dark.
Yeah, and what could be something she knows in real life, but again, I mean, I find it odd because I don't know any neo-Darwinist evolutionists, but told me that a continuous inbreeding of dogs will lead to a different species, but we observe degeneration. Well, no, Faith. First of all, breeding of dogs is called artificial selection. That's why dogs are known as breeds, not species, okay? Because we have intervened and we have selected out traits, contrary to what nature would do, we cannot call them species anymore. We can, but we choose not to. I shouldn't say we can't. We choose not to. There are other times we do that. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, this is an area I'm actually familiar with. We talk about breeds as if that's the way nature intended them to be, but no, you're right. We refer to them as species. Dog, as the domesticated dog that we know today, would be Canis familiaris, whereas other species would be the hyena, the jackal, the wolf, whatever you want to call them. But yeah, those are not how we use the word. They're not interchangeable. You can't say breed and species apply to the same organism, which is the domesticated dog, which is what she's referring to. Doesn't work like that.
Yeah, because all breeds of dogs fall into Canis familiaris or familiaris, or I like to call it Canis lupus domesticus. They're the same thing. In fact, it's funny because in a video with Hovind says no, dogs are not Canis lupus, and I'm like, yes, they're Canis lupus domesticus because Canis lupus are wolves, and one of the ways to describe them is just add domesticus, or you said Canis familiaris. They're both meaning the same thing, because we know that all dogs come from wolves. This has been demonstrated numerous times, and there are different lines coming from wolves. I think they found 4 separate type of speciation events, if I'm not mistaken, but we know that dogs speciated from wolves. This is not science fiction, and this is required. Even in creationism, this is required, because even Hovind agrees with this because you have to have speciation events. He doesn't disagree with that.
Yeah, even during the Neolithic era, we have cave paintings of people having domesticated dogs. They figured it out tens of thousands of years ago.
Yeah, and they didn't even know why. They didn't even know the genetics behind it. I mean, so they knew they could get certain breeds. But anyway, she says that we observe degeneration. Well, pure breed dogs can suffer problematics due to humans' exaggeration breeding specific breeding traits. Yes, that's just kind of Haldane's dilemma and a few other things. When you start breeding, you actually, one, you lose genetic diversity, and then you also have bad genes that go along with these sometimes. So there is a problem with that. Yeah, there's no question. We understand that. So I don't know what you mean by degeneration. They do have degenerative problems. I guess you're right on that. But it won't lead to different species.
I think I know where she's going with this. And degeneration, because there is a misconception about evolution that it's only evolution if new information is being added. Degeneration, or the loss of information, is the opposite of evolution in their mind. At least that's where I think she's going with it.
She might be using it that way. That is even worse because that is completely nonsensical. But I think I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt in saying that she's using degeneration to mean from pure breeds, because she mentions pure breeds right afterwards. And there's really no such thing as a pure breed anymore. I mean, I don't even know if you can actually have a pure breed, whatever that would mean. I don't know what the criteria is. But what she is saying about inbreeding of dogs will lead to different speciations. Yeah, tell your neo-Darwinist evolutionists that he must have skipped a few basic biology courses. Because there's no possible way inbreeding of dogs will lead to a different species. They're not, for one, they're not something we have species for. They're breeds, but you're inbreeding leading to a problem of loss of genetic diversity called loss of heterozygosity, where you have either a fixation, well, in this case, loss of a gene, a loss of a recessive allele, or a fixed one, will lead to inbreeding problems. So I don't know why she says that this will lead to speciation. Inbreeding does not lead to speciation like that. It leads to actually extinction is what it leads to.
Yeah, it does. And if you ever saw the photos 100 years ago of different dog breeds, I hate to use that word because, well, it's all the same dog. These dogs had abilities that we didn't normally have today. Outside of a few breeds of working dog, almost every dog that we know of today has been made within the last 100 years, artificially selected within the last 100 years.
Yes. Well, this post is very telling what she says. Hey, Josiah, will you please stop sending me messages? You know I'm on air, okay? She says Darwinism predicts there are no taxonomic limits of variation. Well, Darwinism is 150 years out of date, so who the hell cares what Darwinism predicts? The Darwinism we don't use, their faith. However, every breeding experiment in the last 100 years attempts to show how far variation can go. E. coli, Drosophila, always encounters limits beyond further changes not possible. What does that even mean, Faith? There's no. What you just said is nonsense. There's been no experiment that shows there's a hard limit or line of demarcation and how much variation the population or speciation can go. Zero. This is complete nonsense. The fundamental prediction of Darwinian theory has been consistently falsified in a century worth of experimental testing. Yeah, Darwinism was falsified over 100 years ago. That's why we don't use Darwinism, Faith. I don't know why you have this straw man argument. Nobody's using Darwinism or Darwinistic theory, as you put it. That doesn't exist in modern evolutionary biology. Modern evolutionary biology uses what's called modern evolutionary synthesis combined with common descent with modification. Okay? So you're literally falsifying something that's already been falsified. And by the way, you're not even falsifying it correctly because this is not what Darwinism said anyways. So you have so many mistakes with this. It's incredible. But she said the bottom line that dog breeding and the observed limits of variation within dogs falsifies the most important practices of Darwinian theory. Again, what does that have to do with evolution? You're conflating Darwinism with evolution. They're completely different things. And I'd love to have you explain what experiment had this hard cap. E. coli experiment, the Linsky 20-year experiment, was a complete success. It demonstrated perfectly what modern evolutionary synthesis and common descent with modification means. It was a mutation in one of the flasks, I believe number 9, that allowed E. coli to metabolize citrate plus in an anaerobic environment. They had the metabolic pathway to do it with the presence of oxygen, but they didn't have the presence to do it without oxygen, or the other way around. I don't remember. Was it the other way around? Either or. They had a metallic pathway for one of them, but I think it was they had a metallic process to do it, you know, in the presence without the presence of oxygen, but with the presence of oxygen they didn't. I don't remember, but they were able to develop a new metabolic pathway to the old metabolic pathway, predicted by evolutionary theory, by not Darwinism, but by evolutionary theory, because evolutionary theory takes into account mutations. Darwin doesn't. Darwinism has nothing to do with mutations because he didn't know what mutations were. So again, straw man argument. This is again why you're a fruit on the ground. Yeah, I mean she is cute. I'll give her that. God, I have to show you this girl's picture that I dated. You guys would like that to be your sister. It's scary. Anything else in here? We go. I don't have too much longer, but I'm just kind of scrolling down a page. Do you guys want to add on? Oh, yeah, she got Ian Juby in here. Yeah, so you can know basically, what her understanding of science is. So she did post me something else, and it was a lot of technical stuff, but I can tell she got it right off the internet, and it was completely wrong. I don't even know what you mean by that, Max.
It looks like the usual culprits of accusations against evolutionary theory.
Yeah, I'm just saying I haven't looked this far down, so I'm just seeing if there's anything else I want to go over before we kind of turn it over. Yeah, fine, Joe, block me. I don't care. Whatever. Oh, is that to me or to Max? I'm sorry. Joe's always like, I'm just going to block him. I'm like, what the hell did I do? Yeah, hey, if you guys want to have a conversation, don't do it while I'm having my video because it's very annoying.
I'm sorry about that.
That's cool. Yeah, there's really nothing much else that I can add on here. She gets into some kind of, oh, she likes ABBA. Hey, well, at least that's cool. I loved ABBA, so she got some taste in music at least, because ABBA's cool. But anyways, I mean, I think I went as far as I really can go on this low-hanging, well, obviously, fruit on the ground creationist. This is the second one. The first one was Antonio, also known as His Truth Be Known. I found out that's why I couldn't do a video on His Truth Be Known, because he was parodying the same stuff. He's still messaging me. I mean, to tell you how insane this guy is for my first video, let me show you this guy's. See if I can find it in my emails here. Where is this guy? Anyways, he keeps on messaging me the same things over and over again, and he's like, "You never refuted anything." I'm like, "You didn't even watch the video we made about you, man." And I was like, "You've been thoroughly trounced." But yeah, I can't find it, so it doesn't really matter. Anyways, what do you guys want to add before we move on, or I end this? Anybody?
All that I could think of, really.
I just want to make sure I've covered everything. I've given her a chance to. I've given her the link, and I said, "Look, you are more than welcome." I said, you're more than welcome. Wow, to come in and address these things with us, because I want to give her the opportunity to defend herself. I really don't like just bashing on somebody unless they deserve it. And like I said, she seems like a really nice person. So I haven't checked the live feed. I don't think anybody's on there. I haven't been checking the live feed. Where is the? We only got like 6 people watching. Oh, Jade. The link doesn't work. There's apparently a problem with linking Hangouts. Helena Hambasket shared a solution for this. I copied it to Steve. Oh. Hang on. Let me see if I can paste this in here then to get them in here. Because the link works because they have people in here.
All right, I'm back. What happened while I was on?
No, we're just finishing this up. There's a couple other things she actually pointed out to me that I kind of wanted to go into, but I don't remember the specifics. They were a little bit technical stuff in one of these posts. I think it was on Tommy's post, and that's the problem. I don't remember if it was on hers or Tommy or where I read some of this stuff at.
She said a bunch of things. I'm sure each and every one was wrong.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, Tommy is so confused. I mean, God bless his little heart. He's so confused on some of this stuff. I mean, here's his wall here, and I mean, he's talking about this. I love this one. Jade would love this one because, she talks about. He talks about the Journal of Experimental Biology, Epigenetics, and Comparative Psychology. And he says, Steve McRae, Fiona, Sam, and others. By the way, Tommy, thank you. To put me with those 2 other names is one of the greatest compliments you could give me. And put me first, even. I mean, I feel uber special. Take that, Fiona, and your PhD, who just tries to confuse people with big words. And she says, another, keep insisting that all the new developments and understandings in biology merely extend the modern synthesis of evolution. Yes, that's all they do, is extend the modern synthesis of evolution. Epigenetics does not change modern evolution, or biology. It doesn't, Tommy. I don't know where he keeps getting this from. I wish Jade could get in here. I gave her the link again because she had probably a lot to say on it. I'm leaving this conversation. You guys are bugging me the crap out of me. Can I leave this without leaving? What it'll do for my hang up? I leave this. Anybody?
Oh, what did Tommy say about epigenetics?
Tommy is saying here. Oh wait, I wasn't broadcasting. That's why you couldn't see this. We broadcast. Okay, can let me hang on.
I see I see it.
Okay, so this is the post. It says Stephen K. Fiona and Sam and others. Wow, I can't believe I got first billing. I feel so special. I'm so proud. And by the way, I know I got a little more echo when I put the mic over here, but yeah, he says considering virtually everything about neo-Darwinism is wrong. Again, we're not neo-Darwinists, and this is only on March 16th, right? And this was like 5 days ago. Guys, how many times have we told Tommy that none of us are following neo-Darwinism? I mean, this is dishonesty because he knows we're not neo-Darwinists, and yet Fiona says she's not a Darwinist, neo-Darwinist. Sam says he's not a neo-Darwinist. I say I'm not a neo-Darwinist, and he's talking about neo-Darwinism again. We call that being dishonest. And epigenetics is not going to reproduce. We're not going to replace modern evolutionary synthesis. It is beyond neo-Darwinism because neo-Darwinism doesn't take into account epigenetics, from what I can understand the nuances. But so what? We don't follow neo-Darwinism. We follow modern evolutionary synthesis. This is, of course, him saying that I didn't give any evidence for evolution. Okay.
Try to give Tommy evidence for evolution. I mean, I'll go with, I call it Tommy's razor. Whatever is least likely, that's his explanation for it.
Yeah, Tommy's razor. Yeah, that's kind of true. I mean, Tommy will, for some reason, latch on to anything that he thinks helps his cause, regardless if it even makes sense. I mean, half the time he's not even reading this stuff. He sent me links, and I just don't know where he's coming from. I'm like, this has nothing to do with anything. I mean, when you start arguing whether natural selection occurs, I really think that you just don't have a basic understanding of what's going on here, because we know natural selection occurs. We know that the peppered moth was an observation. We observed. That's just one. I mean, that's nothing in the period of the big picture. How much we know about natural selection. Who argues natural selection doesn't occur? Dr. Jonathan Safadi, who I talk about a lot, because he's one of the big names of creationism. He doesn't even discount natural selection. You have to have natural selection to account for creationism. From a literal narrative, like of the Bible and the Genesis, the flood, because how do you think you get new species out of that? Well, only a person who doesn't even understand their own belief system would say, well, you don't have speciation. Speciation never occurs. Well, then it doesn't explain what we observe based upon the creationist narrative. I don't know. How do you feel? One second. How do you feel about that now? Have you renounced? I know you renounced your creationism, but you've been explaining, that the flood is Noah's Ark is actually something that's just completely impossible on so many levels. How do you feel about that now? Have you weighed in on that yet? Is he just packing peanut at this time? He fell asleep on me. Anyways, go ahead, Isaiah. You have something to say.
I'm wondering, why is he using the peppered moth example to discount natural selection?
There has been, for some reason, a very strange attack on that lately. And one of the things they had talked about was that they recreated a photo shoot and some other things, and they had pinned moths to the tree, which is true. But that was nothing to do with the original observations. And later on, they repeated this with observation and found that there was a distinct differential reproduction because of the way the predators were eating the moths. And this was it's called melatonin polymorphism. And it's promulgated by natural selection. So what he's trying to say is as a replacement for natural selection is not. It is just something that's included because of the natural selection that's taking place. So peppered moths is a very definitive example of natural selection at work. I mean, nobody can refute that, because even if you go to Wikipedia and just a very simple research on it, it explains exactly what happened in these experiments, how they were recreated, and the photo opportunity that they were doing of why they were pinning to the trees. They seem to conflate different stories, and that's the problem. They take all these things from different areas and they stick them all together and say, oh, look, the original experiment was flawed because they're fraudulent, they falsified data. No, they didn't. So that's kind of the story on that. I think it's just asinine that people are trying to disprove natural selection. That's crazy.
That's Tommy's razor.
Tommy's razor. And you don't understand, just by fiat, say this is wrong. And again, how many times have we explained to Tommy that even if we found DNA that's 65 million years old, which I expect we will, I have no reason to think not, that's not going to demonstrate a young Earth. Not at all, because he's using this stupid half-life of like 520 years or something like that, which he doesn't understand is under certain conditions, I believe, environmental conditions. It has nothing to do with preservation. And so we know that things can be preserved. Schweitzer demonstrated mechanisms by things can be preserved. So we have no reason to discount that we can find DNA that old. But he thinks by fiat that's going to demonstrate a young Earth. Well, no, sorry. Not even close. Do you want to add something, Wayne? I saw you come back.
Not at this time, actually. No.
Oh, no, I was just I'm just waiting for my pizza to get here, but I'm
Oh my gosh.
What do you think of the flood story right now, Wayne? Now that you know that even the Bible doesn't support the flood.
What do I think about the flood story? It's possible it was a worldwide flood, but not global.
And when you mean worldwide, you mean Mesopotamian worldwide,
Global,
though.
not worldwide, is the word. Sorry.
So you mean in the Mesopotamian region?
I don't even know. I don't even know what that means. I haven't really looked into it. But what I will say is, it's possible that only the places that needed to be flooded out were flooded instead of like flooding like the entire globe. Because places where there weren't people, why would God need to like flood Antarctica and stuff like that? It wouldn't make any sense because it wasn't anybody there.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know about making the whole story doesn't make sense to me, but I mean, scientifically speaking, yeah, they have 5 miles of water everywhere. Not going to happen. And I mean, the logistics alone of Noah Ark that we have covered before, we've gone into that numerous times, so not to rehash it here, but we know it's just impossible. So I was kind of hoping, Faith will at least watch the video and comment on the site. I don't know what her time zone is. You guys are saying, people are saying that this is not working. So hang on. I've invited you people. I've invited Jade in the internal too. So I don't know why this is not working.
Actually, if you're going to talk about Noah's flood, in the Bible, if you were to look at the original Hebrew, the words actually, the way it was written, would imply a local flood, not a worldwide flood.
Correct. And there's very good arguments for that to be made. And in fact, it's pretty well given at this point. It's well documented that it was a local flood in Mesopotamia. Why is this not taking? Okay, when I'm listing this, they say it's take them to a blank hangout. And I'm actually adding people. I mean, I'm just going to screen share this. You can actually see that I go to people. I'm going to add Jade.
Wayne, you're always eating pizza when I talk to you.
I mean, I've added them to the Hangout, so why is this not working for them? I don't have to ask a Sarah solution for this. I copied it to Steve. I don't have that. So where'd you copy that? I don't know where that's at. Help me get these people in here, man. I'm not going to be on much longer, but. Anybody?
I don't have my laptop, so I can't see the link. Can you post it?
Taking this right off of the Hangout feed. I'm cutting and pasting.
Isaiah. Who said my name? What was that? Hey guys, this is absolutely unrelated to science.
Go figure.
Yeah, go figure. All right, I'm gonna be seeing Batman v Superman today. Yay!
Oh, that's cool. Oh, hey, Jake came in here. So something's going right now. Um, Jade, what's the story? What's wrong with these the links here? Because this is the same link that I posted earlier. Now you can come in. And I invited you like 3 times to the internal.
I have no idea. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay,
Absolutely.
hang on. I've got to stop the other thing. Okay. Where I had to stop the thing where I was listening to you.
Vote Trump.
And now I've lost the flipping. Okay. Um, yeah, I don't know. Helena said that there was a problem, and she posted a solution to the problem, and I copied it to your G Plus where you announced this, or one of them, but I'll find it and send it to you separately. So I don't know why it does this. I have no clue. But Rumpus has had the same problem.
I will check
And
check that out. I invited both internally. So did you click the link or did you get my internal invite?
I clicked the no. I got the internal invite, but it took like the second or third invite before it worked. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that then, guys.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Google is playing with stuff again. Every time they play with something, they screw it up.
Yeah, because Enlighten got it, Isaiah got it, Jojo got it.
Yeah.
They were able to get in. So maybe you know what? Maybe it's just because you guys are both European, and Google hates European. No, you're not.
I'm in California, for goodness sakes.
That's Fiona that's over there on the other side. Yeah, you're in my neck of the woods.
Yeah. I don't know. When I get my iPad, and I don't know, should be next week, this coming week. I'll try that and see if there's a problem with that. Maybe it's this Chromebook that it doesn't like. I have no idea.
What's the problem?
I invited the Rumpus a few times, so I don't know what's going on.
When we try to join, it says it does one of two things. The first time that I had this problem, it said, which was a different Hangout, not this one. It said, you are the only one here. Do you want to start a new call or something like that?
I hate when that happens.
But yeah, this time it kept telling me you are not authorized to start this call.
You've had that as well before happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I had that happen before too. But Steve, I've only had that happen with your Hangouts. Oh, see, Rumpus is here now too.
Yeah, well, I'm sending him. I've sent these things a million times, and I'm resending them over again and over again. So I'll broadcast you in a second, Rob. Don't worry.
Yeah, I don't know what's causing it, but yeah, because I tried to get in before when you said it to me, it didn't work. So, don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you guys because I've had people say that it's just random when they say they have authorization errors. So. But what do you think of this, the fruit on the ground so far? I mean, obviously, I didn't want to go into too much stuff that we've already rehashed a billion times. But that's what these videos are. Just I don't know how to express to them that what they're talking about has been addressed a billion times. It's simplistic to explain to them why they're wrong.
Yeah, and new people keep coming along, or at least new to us. And I see the same thing on Facebook. Who think they have the answers, and they're copying from what I call the professional creationists, creation.com, Answers in Genesis,
the Discovery Institute.
The Discovery Institute, thank you, that was another one, yeah. And they don't understand, because they don't have a really solid background in science, or, might I add, rhetoric. They don't understand that these people aren't telling the entire truth. And the reason I throw rhetoric in there is I was fortunate enough to have an English professor at UCLA who really went through how to tell if something is slanted. And he we went through articles in like Time magazine. He said, you think all these things are neutral. They aren't. Take a look at the language that's being used and how you are being targeted with that language. So, and some of these places like Answers in Genesis are really good at that. A rhetorical analysis of some of their articles would be really interesting. And it's not something I'm really good at. However, I have a young friend who is getting his master's degree in rhetoric, so I might make an attempt at doing this and have him check it out, because it'd be interesting to show how they're using their language to target people and to mislead them. And the average person doesn't understand this. We're flooded with advertisements, from the time we listen to radio or television or whatever, and we know that some stuff's hype, but we miss other things. We often miss the subtleties. I did my paper in college, which was many years ago, on an article from Time magazine that on the surface looked completely neutral. But when I started to analyze the language usage, I was really surprised. I then did my bigger paper, that was the smaller paper, the midterm, on comparing a biology book from a high school biology book from the 1930s with my biology book from the 1960s, and looking at the use of language in those two to show how things have changed. Back in the 1930s, the way they used language, it was really interesting, because it was almost as if they were applying, I can't think of the right word I want to use, but applying legitimacy to any sort of sexual act, including between mice. You know what I mean? It was like, but by the 1960s, people were using more proper and accurate language, and nobody was, trying to say, well, the little mousey loved the other little mousey. I mean, I'm exaggerating. But yeah, they don't know how they're being misled because of the rhetoric and because they don't understand the basic science. You get and one of the classics, this is the rhetoric, this is something Steve was talking about, is Darwinian. They're using Darwinian evolution. And it's very easy to say, Darwinian evolution has been debunked. Look at how bad Darwinian evolution is. This is a rhetorical device because nobody believes in Darwinian evolution anymore. It's an out-and-out lie, but most people don't understand that. Now, because Brandon has brought this up before, yes, there are scientific papers, and yes, there are books that still use the phrase Darwinianism or Darwinian evolution. But two things. First of all, sometimes it's just a casual, rather than saying the modern synthesis, the modern evolutionary synthesis, they just use Darwinian because they know what their audience, they know that their audience knows what they're talking about. They're not talking about strict Darwinian evolution. The other thing is some of those usages, because I did this too. I went to science. I went to Google Scholar, and I looked up Darwinian evolution. Sometimes when you click on the links and you actually look at how they're using the term, they actually are using the term in an old-fashioned way, either to represent true Darwinian evolution or the Darwinian, the neo-Darwinian synthesis that we think of, which combine Mendel with Darwin. So just because the phrase Darwinian evolution is sometimes used, it does not mean that that is the proper usage or the general consensus today. Sometimes it's just a sloppy usage. Sometimes it's just they're targeting only one part of it. You have to look at what's being said, because you will see this with certain people who will grab one paper. I actually posted something today. I don't want to go on forever, but a Nephilim Free keeps bringing up this thing where horses are more closely related to bats than they are to cows. And I looked this up, and I found out where it came from. Yes, okay.
Yeah, I heard say that. Yeah.
If you want to know the whole story, look at my Google Plus feed. Okay. And if you need a link to it, I'll give you to it. So I tracked this down. It starts with a article in Creation Ministries International. Creation Ministries International links to a article in I think it's the New Scientist. The New Scientist links to an article to a journal paper in PubMed. However, I'm not real good at this science, the science behind it. Actually, Steve might be better at some of this because I'm a little foggy on some of the genetics and stuff. But I did a little research, and I found out from near me, the University of California at Santa Cruz, which has the Genome Wiki. They have an article about this, and they're basically saying, so what, are we using a couple of rare things to now say that there's a new clade, and in this clade belongs. So what he's doing is he's taking this one paper that is asserting that there's really a new clade of animals, and they're doing it on a certain genetic analysis. And he's acting as if this is gospel, that this is what all scientists believe. And no, it's not. It's one paper proposing something new, which is worth consideration and worth looking into. So I posted first the article from UCSC, and then underneath that I posted the links to the history from CMI to New Scientist to PubMed. But you know darn well that Neff only read the article in CMI, with Creation Ministries International. But this is the thing that happens. You can find one person or one group who will disagree with the consensus, or who will see something new and put it out there. Like, that's what basically I understand this is. I haven't really thoroughly read everything yet, just to be clear. But as a possibility. What about this? We're looking at this. We're looking at the genome in this particular way, which is another thing. When people say, well, this proves this. This is more related to this than this. Well, these two are related by this percentage. No, it's related by this percentage. Depends on what you're looking at. Depends on what part of the genome you're looking at.
Yeah, it's very selective, right? I mean, they're being very selective. I mean, it's being very selective.
Right. So that's you've got to be careful. Because a lot of these people, like Answers in Genesis, Creation Ministries International, will do this. They'll find this one paper like they did here, one paper that proposes something new because they looked at a little part of the genomes and said, look at this is really interesting. And so they decided, oh, this is going to really kick evolution in the butt. So we're going to make an article about how horses and bats are more related than horses and cows, which isn't fact. It's a hypothetical new clade has been proposed, and if you look up this supposed new clade, you will find almost nothing on it except this UCSC article. So that's it. That's what they tend to do, and they don't really understand the science, because scientists propose crazy stuff all the time, and it's worth looking into. It's just saying, look what we see over here. What do you guys think about it? Is this, a really good thing? Is this, we need to look into it more? So this is something that's fairly new. I actually didn't look at the dates, but it's fairly new that has been proposed. I don't see, and again, I'm going to look a little bit more. I haven't seen a lot of support for this new clade out there, or for the way they did the analysis. But yeah, you can't take this one thing, and that's one of the reasons I put on my Google Plus, is because you can't just take this one thing, the one paper, the one speculation, the one outlier, and then use that to try to demolish or damage evolution. But this is what these professional creationists do. They will take this one thing, and they will, make a big fuss over it, and misrepresent it, and misrepresent science in general by misrepresenting it. And the creationists go, whoa, look, another nail in the coffin of the theory of evolution, when that isn't true. I used to have a link, I don't know where it is anymore, that showed a mammalian analysis done different ways. And it was really cool, because depending on which way you did the analysis, it showed different animals closer to others. One was, lagomorphs, rabbits and hares. So in some of the analyses, they were closer to humans than they were in others. And in others, there were animals they were closer to that they weren't close to at all in others, depending what the genome you look like. But the point of this is, you don't just look at the one thing. You don't just look at the one analysis. You look at all of them. And when you look at all of them, you see a relationship. you see, okay, yes, in this one rabbits are more closely related to humans, rabbit lagomorphs, and in this one they're further. However, what you don't see is suddenly don't see them like on the other side of the analysis. So, if you're looking at, let's say if you're looking at a horizontal line that's humans, and the lagomorphs are always above humans on this horizontal line. They're always above. They may be different distances, but they're always above. You'll never see them on the other side of the line. So relationships are preserved. They're just a little different depending on what genes you're looking at. And that's because, in part, all genes don't have this exact same evolutionary history. Yeah. It's not like our entire genome evolved at once. Some of our genes evolved in different patterns at different times. So that's why you're going to see us, let's say, have certain genes in common with lagomorphs that we don't with wolves, but other genes that we have in common with wolves that we don't with lagomorphs, that kind of thing. Although I'm making that particular relationship up.
Can you see what I'm posting?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
To show, because so Faith and them can understand.
Oh yeah, there we go with the rodents. Yeah. Okay.
So what Jade is kind of saying when it comes to unique character combinations, which has to do with cladistics. What she's saying is, you're never going to find like a bird that's coming off here. These characteristics, like a vertebrate. All these things here have vertebrates. Have a vertebrate. All these things have a bony skeleton. All these things have 4 limbs from here on. All these things have anemotic eggs. All these things have hair up here. You're never going to find a shark that has eggs. You're never going to find this over here. It never happens. There's a reason for that. These cladiograms fall in line with the phylogeny, the homologies, the way we look at how the bones are structured, the way we look at the genetics. All these different are individual lines of evidence that have consilience to say this is where sharks fall in the evolutionary timeline. If we have a shark that laid eggs, evolution would go to shit. Evolution would be destroyed.
With the modern egg, they do lay a certain kind of egg, but it's a soft.
Yeah. I'm not talking about a hard. I'm talking about a hard shell egg.
Right, hard shell. Right.
Yeah.
There would go evolution. Right.
But
you see, but you see where the primates and rodents are on there.
Yeah.
So what the thing is, depending on what analyses you might run, you might see that line for rodents and rabbits be a little closer to primates or a little further away from primates. But it'll always be roughly the same place. It's not going to suddenly come off of crocodiles.
Yeah, you're never going to have this over here.
Right.
And then
exactly.
This right here is where we say this is a common ancestor. So birds, all these things over here, the primates and crocodiles, had a common ancestor here that was related to amphibians. As you can see, well, hang on, these did not come from this line. We did not evolve from this line here.
Right.
We share a common ancestor with them, and that's a hard concept for people to get. And yes, sometimes we can find this common ancestor species. Sometimes we can't. Like, for example, when she pointed out, we cannot find pine priori yet, which is a common ancestor to chimpanzees. I wonder if I can find a cladogram for that. Let's see, types of common ancestors that's to be expected. Okay, because here, this would be the common ancestor right here between humans and chimpanzees. Okay, this would be, I guess, pan priori. And look what it says here, 6 million years ago. And do you remember when I typed in timetree.org?
Yeah.
It said 6.6 million years ago. This conforms with predictions. But we have found common ancestors down here. We found some down here. We know that those exist. I think the last one somewhere down here would have been Paralithicus catalonicus, because that was 13 million. That was this one right here. So this would have to have been Paralithicus catalonicus 13 million years ago. That one we have found.
Right. And one of the things, while you've got that up there, one of the things I wanted to point out is that we share certain traits with gorillas that we do not share with chimpanzees and bonobos. And creationists try to use this as a challenge against evolution. I actually have, on my other computer, the one that is not working at the moment, all this information, so I'm kind of going to... I don't remember exactly what traits they are, but I'm sure you can look them up. And so they try to say, well, you see, this shows that humans are more closely related to gorillas. No, it doesn't. What it shows is that our common ancestor between gorillas, chimps, and humans had this particular trait. The common ancestor between chimps, bonobos, and humans had this trait. In the line to chimps and bonobos, the trait was lost. That's what it means. It doesn't mean we're more closely related to gorillas. It just means that in the line between the common ancestor of humans, chimps, and bonobos, that trait was lost in chimps and bonobos.
So why is it though? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No,
why,
go ahead.
why is it that they're so adamant to say, look, we have not found this, but they ignore the fact we found this? Why do they do that?
They really hate the idea that we are apes. You'll notice they'll say, we're not like apes, or we're descended from apes, which always makes me laugh when you hear them say, oh, creationists say, evolutionists say we're descended from apes, because, well, that is technically true. We are descended from apes. We're descended from certain kinds of apes, but we're still apes. Guess what? We're still apes. There is this misconception about what an ape is, about what an animal is. You'll see certain people get very, very upset when you say that we're animals. We're not animals. We're not animalistic. We don't. It's a misunderstanding of the term animal. They seem to think that, if you're saying animalistic, you're saying primitive, violent, so on and so forth. And the reality is that that sort of primitiveness and violence that they're talking about doesn't even belong in the animal kingdom. Animals, for the most part, short of brain injury, behave in certain logical ways, even if those ways might seem violent to us. For example, if a male lion head of a pride gets chased away or killed, the new male head of the pride will kill all the cubs. Now that may seem terrible to us, but it's his way of ensuring that his line endures, and that the other males, one of his male offspring, is not going to grow up to challenge him, you see. So that may seem very violent to us, but we humans did stuff like that too. We would go and eradicate entire villages. That's happened in many, many cultures. The Vikings sometimes would land. There's an interesting story about that. In Ireland, the Vikings would come and they would attack villages and they would kill everybody from babies on up. And this made sense for a number of reasons. First of all, you didn't have anyone alive to come attack you and kill your family later. Also, if you kill and fight all the adults, and Irish women fought alongside Irish men, so you're probably going to end up killing all the adults, you'd end up with a bunch of children who couldn't care for themselves, and unless the Vikings were on a slave raid, they didn't have the kind of ships to carry a bunch of babies and kids back, so it made sense to kill everybody. On the other hand, some of the ancient Irish would attack it was a Danish town, because Viking is a thing you do, it's not a kind of people, but they'd attack a Danish town, and they would kill all the adults and all the adolescents, but they'd keep the babies and toddlers and raise them as their own. And which is why those of us who are Irish have a lot of Danish blood in us, because, yeah. But that was just a slight cultural difference. But it's not that the Vikings were terribly awful people for their time. That was their behavior at the time. For us today, we look at eradicating an entire village as a horrific thing. That's just the way people were. So we can't. That's not animalistic behavior. It's human behavior.
Yeah, but
right.
that's a societal thing. I mean, that's that's a social behavior thing. We don't. When we're in biology, obviously, when we say animal, we're talking about we're talking about a set. And anything
Right.
that has the conditions
Right.
that multicellular, heterotrophic will fall into
Right.
animal. You can see what I'm posting right now, right?
Yeah.
It's not very clear, but this is a better cladogram that I wanted to show because this actually has something to do with what we talked about earlier with Darwinism, Darwinius, which is a fossil which was found 47 million years ago here, named after Charles Darwin. It was predicted to be found to be related to Streptococcus and Streptococcus. God, it's a hard word. And Haplorhines.
Yeah, I know.
Strepsirrhine.
Strepsirrhine.
Strepsirini.
Strepsirini and Haplorhini.
Haplorhini. Yeah, Strepsirini and Haplorhini. You know what? You say these things a billion times, going, and all of a sudden but and then the other ones were the Platyrrhenes and the Catarrhenes,
Right.
and that what we expected to find was an animal that looked and had the properties of this right here. And
Right.
guess what we found? Something that the conditions that had to be in that set, just like an animal. So when they say that we're an ape, we're talking all these things here, these lesser and greater apes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have no tails as a condition. Okay, ape literally means tail, primate without a tail. Tailless primate. There's other things too, but we fall into that category. That's all it is as a category thing. Nothing more. People need to stop
Right.
thinking it's more than that.
Yeah, but then that's the problem. They can't separate these idea of animalistic, as in social behavior, with animal, which is just it's just a biological category. And our use of the phrase animalistic comes from actually it comes from our misunderstanding of how animals behave, because we looked at animals as being very violent, when in fact we were far more violent than they were. So it Yeah, just say that something's an animal doesn't mean that there's somehow animalistic in the social sense. It's ridiculous, but they hate that, and they just can't wrap their heads around the fact that this is just a classification. I've seen people admit that we are mammals, and yet not admit we're animals.
Yeah, and so
It's
it's a nonsensical argument when they say we're not animals, because if we say that whatever has this, and this property is this label, that's what it means. We can take
right.
it any way they want to mean something else, but we're just saying that if you're heterotrophic, if you're multicellular, if you fall into this, you're not a plant, you don't have photosynthesis, you're an animal. Why they
Yeah,
disagree with that is absurd to me. So
yeah, because we're eukaryotes. That's obvious. You can't deny that one. We're eukaryotes because we have eukaryotic cells. And if we're eukaryotes, we have three choices. There may have been another one in ancient times, but right now we have three choices. You're either plants, you're animals, or you're fungi. I'm pretty sure we're not plants or fungi.
as well.
So,
I'm working on seeing if I can get one for person number 3 for my further ground creation. This guy named John Wiley. He's pretty basics, but
yeah. Well, and you can tell them. You brought up oh crap, I always forget his name. The guy who got the fossils from the Carnegie Museum.
Miller.
Miller, yeah. And the thing is, when he asked for the fossils, he didn't tell them what he was going to do with them.
Right. It was the whole thing from start to finish was
Right.
extremely disingenuous and dishonest. He
Yeah.
was basically, they're saying, well, they're saying, well, he had to be because they were never given him blah 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 blah, which are probably right. But the fact remains, if you're going to do a scientific experiment or scientific test, you have to do it properly.
Right.
And because they did not have all information, they could not give a scientific correct result. The result was incorrect because they were not properly informed. And
Right.
and so basically all the data is incorrect, and they don't get this. They don't understand Miller was deceptive, but purposely being deceptive because he
Yes.
wanted them to screw up, do it anyway, so we can use this later on.
Right.
This has been long since debunked. Go ahead.
And if I remember correctly, I have to look this up because I may be confusing him with someone else. But I think the museum was kind of upset when they found out he destroyed the fossils, or at least part of the fossils, in doing the test.
It's a destructive test.
Yeah, and that wasn't why they loaned them to him.
Yeah, I mean, when you do something in science, you focus on a non-destructive test and your destructive testing, and
Right.
non-destructive testing doesn't destroy something. Well,
Right.
when you do carbon dating on a dinosaur bone, you actually have to pulverize it. You actually crush
Yes.
it, and so
And
it destroys it.
and when when they destroyed it, they got the coating in. You're dealing with a powder at this point, and so that coating was in the powder, and that's what they were measuring.
Yeah, the testing actually, if you really want to get technical, the carbon dating was correct, but they carbon dated the shellac, not the fossil.
Exactly.
So if you really want to get technical, it actually kind of worked. It probably wasn't perfectly calibrated, but it actually worked. That the shellac is probably around 27,000, 30,000 years old, but that has nothing to do with the dinosaur. Well, the dinosaur fossil. how can anybody in their right mind not understand how this was completely bogus study?
Well,
Because
and the geologist Stephen Austin did the same thing with the samples from Mount St. Helens. He knew that was fake. There's
oh
no
yeah,
way.
oh yeah,
Yeah. And this is why I tell people, if you're going to be a creationist, I mean, if you really believe that God made the earth in 6 days, 6,000 or some years ago, there's a question because of the genealogy isn't exact, so people often say 6 to 10,000 years ago. That, okay, fine, believe that. I don't have a problem with you believing that. But don't stop paying attention to these people because they are lying to you. And I personally think it's pretty damn vile for them to lie to other Christians. And that's what they're doing. What happened to that ninth commandment answers in Genesis and Creation Ministries International and Ray Comfort. There are some Christians, quote unquote, some fundamentalists that think it's okay to lie to non-believers, but these guys are lying to believers.
yeah, because there's money to be made. That's the only reason.
Oh yeah, that's why I call them professional creationists, because this is how they make their living. They get a lot of support. If you go to their websites, you will see all these ads: buy this, buy this, buy this, buy this, buy this. Yeah, that's what it's all about. And giving Ken Ham money so he can open his stupid Ark project, which isn't proving anything because he's using modern building methods in building his Ark. That's
which wouldn't float anyways, and not be able to even close to house all the number of animals that would be required for that story to be true. I mean, not even close.
And if you ever hear a story about how some engineers in England showed that the Ark, as described, could float, well, it's true, sort of. Okay. I think it was engineering students, actually, who did this, but that doesn't mean anything. A student could be, a graduate student and still very highly accomplished. But they did apparently do an engineering study on using the understanding of how the Ark was built. Of course, one of the problems is nobody has a flying, idea what gopher wood is, but, looking at common woods in the area at the time, and so they did an analysis of a boat the size of the Ark, and they found that, yeah, it would float. Of course, critics immediately pointed out that they did not take into consideration things like, pitch and yaw.
Yeah.
In other words, the Ark would float on a very, very, very still surface. The minute you had waters that were agitated in the least, it was screwed. So, but I'm just mentioning that because if you ever hear someone say, yeah, well, there are these scientists or engineers or whatever who proved that the Ark could float, yeah, on an absolutely smooth surface.
I agree. I've said it forever. I mean, I was Navy, right? I mean,
yeah,
I will tell you right now that I've had 40+ degree rolls in 20-foot swells. I mean, water that would kill a person if you were out there. It's bad enough in a steel ship that has been highly technically made by experts and modern shippers or shipyards. I guarantee if that was a wooden ship, that's about the size of the Titanic. It was a little bit smaller than the Titanic, I guess, or it was a little bit bigger than the Titanic. It was about that size. I mean, it was
roughly.
Yeah, it was nowhere near as big as like the Queen Mary. It was a fraction of the size of Queen Mary. That ship would have been toast. I mean, that ship would have capsized, no problem. Yeah, no, not down to my mind. Yeah. I will stake my life on that.
There is a famous picture, and I'll see if I can try to find it. But it is I'm pretty sure it's a U.S. Navy ship, but it is a Navy ship in a typhoon in these really, really high waves, and it's at this angle, and you're just going, "Holy fuck!"
Yeah, it's not fun. People
no, and it's just, and you're looking at this, and you're thinking that ship is toast, but it isn't because it's built to, I mean. However, even though ships are built really, really well, they still go down occasionally.
It can happen. I mean, you take a bad enough roll. I mean, what happens? 100% of the mast actually is made to actually break first, and that right side of the boat. I don't want to test that theory, But when,
Yeah.
when it rolls and it pitches like this, and you're walking on the bulkhead, it sucks.
Now, see, I've
It's
only
not
been on
fun.
I've only been on small boats out in the ocean, but I've been in some pretty rough seas out in the ocean. And it's interesting to me too because I've noticed later, especially one day we were out, and I was out with a marine technology course I was taking, and we're out there and on the boat, and the seas were really rough, and we're being tossed around a bit, but we didn't really pay too much attention to it because even though we were being tossed around, our feet were still sort of, like firmly planted on the boat because the boat was built to withstand, I mean, we were a little wobbly, but, we were okay. So we came in, and I remember looking back out at other boats and thinking, holy fuck, how are those people not falling over? And it's because the boat is built to handle that. The boat is built to keep you mostly upright. You may have to grab for something every once in a while or shift your weight from one side or the other. But even though it looks like, I mean, it looked horrible. It looked like the people should have been falling over, but they weren't. Just like I wasn't when I was out there. It's because of shipbuilding practices, which didn't exist back then.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the reality is, like I said, I mean, anybody who's been on that kind of boat or seen those kind of videos would be able to tell you that the Ark would not have survived. Not for even a half hour. In 20 minutes, it would have capsized and been down easily. In a matter of minutes, I'm sure. Wyatt, right? I'm going to broadcast you.
Okay.
Wyatt is one of my next projects. He's like,
okay.
Yeah, he's like a baby Wayne Fillmore. He's slowly having to think about young Earth creationism, and he wants to learn. He wants to know if what's true and what's not. I respect that, and I've had some very good conversations with him that have been derailed by other people, which is unfortunate. But
shush, Freddie, I'll get to you. You've been fed. Stop that. I'm on a hangout, so you want attention. Stop it. In case you hear a cat whining. He does that sometimes. It's like, pay attention to me. Now he's gone away. He got the message. But yeah, actually one of my professors, because I took marine technology, so we covered oceanography and we covered a little bit of ship engineering, not a lot. And one of my professors had this picture on his door, and the one I'm talking about, the ship in the typhoon. I'll have to see it. It's got to be online somewhere. And one day he went by and he looked, and he showed it to us on the screen later. He says, looks like somebody made a slight addition to my picture. Somebody took a pencil and drew in a surfer going down the wave.
Yeah, this surf 20-foot waves, right?
It was more than 20 foot, believe me.
Oh yeah, they can get big. I mean, I'm probably being conservative. I mean, these walls of water. I mean, when you're looking up, I mean, there is a wall of water taller than a building. It's hard to describe if you've never been out in the open seas in the Atlantic. The water is not like you're used to in the Pacific. It's cold, it's wet. Obviously, it's not fun. I wouldn't recommend it.
No, the seas in the Atlantic are more vicious, and that's partly because the Atlantic is smaller, quite a bit smaller.
Anyways, Wyatt, how you doing today? I'm probably going to end this video, actually, so I want to keep it short because this is basically for like Wrap Creationist Part 2. So I want to do a wrap-up. And then, Jade, real quick, did you get my presentation for DNA?
I haven't had a chance to look at it yet. I was...
I have a copy, but on this one, but maybe when we get a chance, we need to collaborate on that. What we're working on is we're trying to do a seat for those watching. A lot of people want to know what we mean by DNA to mRNA to protein, what they mean by phosphorus ester bond. And so what I thought about doing is I've never seen this anywhere. I've never seen a presentation or video that starts literally at the nitrogenous bases. I don't think we need to get into atoms, but I mean the nitrogenous bases, and then build up. And this is not exactly how DNA is going to be built up in the body, but build up conceptually to a nucleoside, and then to a nucleotide, and then and then how these processes work, how the condensation reactions work, how the ester bonds form, how the glycosidic bonds form, and then build it up, and then have it go to the DNA, and then how that DNA would produce mRNA through transcription, and then out nuclear transport, then translation. I'm not going to get into the DNA replication, which is part of the central dogma. I don't think anybody really cares that much about it. I could do that on DNA polymerase 3 and have another polymerase work, but I don't think it really is that interesting. But I think the central dogma to protein and how, I mean, all the way to the very end, how the ribosomes work, how the aminoacyl tRNA synthesis work. All these big words that people get scared of. All these big words, how they get scared of. And then I explained to them that these words are not that complicated. When I talk about adenosine triphosphate, why do we call it adenosine triphosphate? Why do we call it a monophosphate? Why do we call it? I don't think if people really looked at this stuff and go, you know what, that's really not that difficult. I can understand. Now it gets difficult because there's a lot of crap to remember, but if you just tell them this is what a kinase does, this is what a enzyme does, this is what, if you break it down what the words actually mean. 9 times out of 10, you can look at something and go, okay, I just know what these words mean and how they're put together. I can kind of interpret what it all does. Right? I mean, if I say adenosine triphosphate, how many phosphates is that? 3 phosphates.
3.
So I want to do something along those lines. I think it'd be interesting because it's not my heavy area, but I like it, so that's why I want to do it.
Yeah, when I first studied biology, they passed out to us. They didn't, spend a lot of time on it in class, but they passed out a list of Latin and Greek suffixes and prefixes, and as well as some other common Latin and Greek words. So, because if you understand sometimes, even if you see something you didn't know what it was, like the ASE, right? What does ASE in the end of a word mean in chemistry?
Has to do with their carbon bonding.
Right. So the thing is, you have a general idea of what you're talking about. So if I see the difference between an A and E, like there's an alkane, alkene, and alkynes, I automatically have an idea. If I see something that says A and E at the end, oh, it's only got single bonds and it's a hydrocarbon. But that's what these things mean. And when you study science, you learn the language. You learn what an alcohol looks like in just the words.
Right.
It ends in all, ethanol, methanol, propanol.
You can break it down. Literally, Drag and I did a basic hangout on biochemistry a while back, which is something I suck at, but I mean I know the basics, and so we were explaining, if it's ENE, like alkene, it has a carbon-carbon double bond. It has no carbon bond, so you know instantly by looking at it whether the carbon is bonded with a double or a single, just by looking at the word.
Right.
It was an interesting hangout.
Yeah.
But I'm going to probably end this hangout. I'm gonna stay in here, but I want to go over my presentation with you, see what you guys think so far, what we have, and then go from there. Christopher Milligley, sorry you came in late. I don't know what you would add to the conversation anyways, because you know about as much about science as my left toe, but.
Oh, that's all right, Steve. I do know some about science. I may not know definitions, but I do know how science works. So anyway, have a great day.
No, hang on, Chris. You've been reading up on this? I'll keep it open for a minute. You've been reading up on science?
I never said I read up on nothing particular, but I did say I do know how science works.
So you got the correct version of the scientific method now down?
What do you mean?
Well, like observation. Like when we say observation is science, you now understand that doesn't mean we have to time travel and go backwards in time to observe something?
Oh, well, you're talking about observational science. That is testable, provable, repeatable, observable.
Right, but when they say observable, have you figured out yet they don't mean we have to go backwards in time to observe something?
Well, when it says observable, that means exactly that. That if you're talking about something in the past, then that cannot be by definition observational science.
See, as expected, Christian Hillary hasn't learned proper science yet. That's why I want to clarify. I was hoping he would learn proper science, but as demonstrated, he doesn't understand proper science. So, I was just hoping that when he said that he loves science, I was like, did you finally understand?
I do love science. I love how it bears out that there is a creator. I love how it shows us that God created each and every one of us unique.
Right, but that might be fine to you, but the problem is you don't know proper science. Your version of science is completely different than every scientist in the entire world.
No, I disagree with that too, because science always is going to be that. If you're talking about observational science or if you're talking about something in the past, then something in the past, by definition, is not observational science. You can make inferences.
I challenge you.
You can actually look at something and make inferences, but you cannot observe something in the past.
I will prove to you you're wrong in 30 seconds. You want to hear it?
Sure.
Astronomy is observational science. Astronomy looks into the past. We are observing the past. That is called observational science.
No, actually, you're not. Because
Really?
once you look at how starlight and time react, you're not looking at the past. You're actually looking at the light. So that's not looking into the past.
Well, when you look at anything, you're observing light. All our observations are light. And second of all, the bigger picture is that, again, observational science does not require you to actually physically observe something. That's not what is meant by it. You have a gross misunderstanding of the term observational science because it fits your narrative, but it's not how science works.
Well, you know, I think if it was going to be something other than observe, they would actually call it something other than observational science, don't you?
No, because we understand what it means by that because we're smart people.
I understand what it means too, Steve. You observe what you're going to do. You actually have an experiment. You test it, you prove it, you repeat it, and then you observe it and get the observation down on paper and get it out to people who can look at it.
Yeah, you don't prove it either. See, you really don't know scientific methodology with a damn Christian hillbilly. You're so far removed from reality on what science actually is that you have this narrative that's your own, but it's certainly not that of actual scientists. I guarantee it. But the only reason I brought this up is I want Wyatt to listen in on what actual people that know science and what somebody who doesn't. Because everything we're saying is validatable. You are not required to actually observe something if it's not within your lifetime. In other words, I don't have to go back in time and observe something to formulate what happened. That's how we have forensic evidence. I can look backwards in time.
Yes, you can have forensics, but that's not truly science. That's not something that is observational science. You are making inferences about the past.
He just said, okay, Christian Hillbilly just said in my hangout that forensics is not science.
Yeah, I didn't say that. I said that is not the science that we're talking about. Forensics is not something that is an observable science. You would not be able to observe the fact of the thing that happened in the past.
No, see,
You got fruit on the ground on the ground.
I got fruit on the ground in here. Yeah.
I am actually, if I can just say for a minute, I'm observing the past right now.
Yeah, Hilda, you got an echo, by the way. Everything we observe is in the past because it takes time for the photons to get to our eyes, okay?
Exactly.
And then we have to process it. So we're looking into the past everywhere we look.
Right now.
Yeah, there's two types of sciences, and I'm only going to explain this to you because I want Wyatt to know this. There's experimental and observational. And experimental means we're actually doing the experiment. The other types are observational, which means we cannot do an experiment with. If I cannot do experiments with things like black holes, because I cannot physically go there, that's observational science. If I'm doing something that happened in the past, that's observational science. Okay? So if I have something that happened, in fact, like forensics, like I have a murder, we're using observational science to see what we can observe now to explain then.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean what you're observing now is actually going to prove what happened in the past. Because, again, once you go do that, you are moving outside of the natural observable science. You can make inferences from that, but, you know, science doesn't say anything. Yeah. Only scientists do. So your observation, your opinion on it does not make any difference.
Wait. Observable science means that we observe it now. That's where you're making a huge mistake. Now is what we're talking about. You think observable science means we have to observe it then. No. We don't have to recreate something. So forensic science is observable science because we're looking at the forensics. We're observing the forensics we see now. Nobody understands this better than scientists, and you don't understand this because you have no scientific background. Go ahead, Wyatt.
Well, actually, I do. See, I can sit there and tell you that I'm looking at this stuff on this table, but that doesn't mean I can tell you exactly how it got there.
Anyways,
you're going to have to make inferences. And you know what? One scientist might come up with one inference, another scientist might come up with another. The fact is that the evidence, it does not give you an exact, testable, repeatable bit of information.
Yeah, let Wyatt go. He's been waiting. I mean, Wyatt, do you understand how bad this guy's reasoning is? Bad as science is because he doesn't understand inductive reasoning. Go ahead, Wyatt.
Sorry. Well, man, there's been so many nuances that that I do not really know where to begin. Basically, well, let me start with evidence. Well, evidence does not really say anything. Evidence does have to be interpreted through our perceived worldviews. So basically, if you were talking about murders is a great example. Most murder cases, they try to infer how it happened, but they already have the preconceived idea of who did it. So a lot of so-called murderers are sent to death row by just someone's presupposition instead of the evidence.
Well, it's not a precept. The evidence can be wrong, but evidence means something we evaluate. Nobody says that evidence is perfect. Nobody says science is perfect. What Hillbilly is trying to do is he confuses inductive reasoning with deductive reasoning, and it's a huge mistake that creationists often make, and they do it on purpose because the evidence is against them. When we were talking about science,
I disagree with that.
Yeah, when we're talking about science, all we're saying is that we are making a determination of what model best fits the evidence. When we say observational, we just mean observation of what we're doing now. Brony, go ahead and take it for 5 minutes. I've got to end this in literally like less than 5 minutes. So, Atheist Brony, go ahead and take it away for us for a minute, then I'll do my recap.
I just wanted to point out that that this terms Christian Hillbilly has been using, historical science and observational science, are bullshit. This is just a couple of terms made up by Kent Hovind. There's just science. Regardless of, if it's testable and repeatable, yes. And as far as the idea of observing it, so fucking what if you did observe something? Science doesn't care because historically, statistically, that can be some of the worst evidence that exists.
Well, let me ask you this.
That's why it has to be testable
something that's
and
doing
repeatable.
something today actually did that in the past. You have no clue.
Evidence.
Well, David Hume even brought this up. This problem called induction, the uniformity of nature, which David Hume had a really big problem with, because if you're going to say, how do you know that the present will be like the past? Well, because the present has always been like the past and the past. Well, that's begging the question.
Can I say something to both of you guys? Because I'm a Christian too, and I think that the laws of nature haven't changed. The Bible says the laws of nature haven't changed. The present is going to be like or the past is going to be like the future, and et cetera, et cetera. The laws of nature haven't changed.
Well, I don't know where you're getting that from. But again, when you're talking about evidence, the evidence points to a loving creator God. You want to use science, let's do that. But again, science that you're talking about, looking at deep past science or looking at creation science, you know what? You cannot ever assume that what happened in the past is always going to happen that way. It's always going to work the same way every single time. Because again, the evidence kills the belief that you can actually do something, or actually.
Let me address this real quick. Hume's problem of induction has nothing to do with science. Hume's problem of induction has to do with epistemology. Okay, so it has nothing to do with the topic. Second of all, because I just want to emphasize, science does not make conclusive 100% categorical absolutisms. We're talking in the realm of science. There was always going to be a problem of induction. There's nothing wrong with that. It's still the best model to fit the evidence. What Christian Hillbilly just said is very telling. And by the way, yes, I do note the irony of having fruit on the ground in a fruit on the ground hangout. The irony is kind of palatable. But the thing that you were saying about oh my goodness, I just lost my entire train of thought.
Uniformitarianism.
Yeah, uniformitarianism. Wait, does Christian Hillbilly not understand, which he doesn't, that if we do not have a presupposition of uniformitarianism, we can never make predictive modeling, because we would never be certain that things could ever be reliable.
Well, so, again, that's using science to observe it now, isn't it?
No.
How can we understand science if we don't observe it?
Christian,
now, when you're talking about evidence, look at the evidence for creation. Let's look at the evidence for God.
We'll do that in another hangout. Christian Hillbilly, I want you to ask my question.
That's not science. That's not science.
Christian Hillbilly, I want you to ask my question.
Actually, it is.
I want you to answer my question. If you remove uniformitarianism, how do we have predictive modeling? How do we know that we can make any kind of model that's going to be predictive if we don't have uniformitarianism?
So are you saying that things
answer the
happen
question.
today just exactly they happened 6,000 years ago?
Answer the question the way it's asked.
I'm asking you a question.
If
You don't answer a question with a question.
I'm trying to clarify. Does he believe that every single thing happens exactly the way today that it did 1,000 years ago?
That's not a clarifying question.
Actually, it is.
No,
Jade,
it's not.
I got this, Jade.
Okay.
I got this. Okay, this is not a clarifying question. The question is very simple. If you remove if you remove uniformitarianism, how do we have predictive modeling? Can you answer that question?
Are you asking, does everything work exactly the way it does today that it did 1,000 years ago? Are you saying that?
That is not what uniformitarianism is. Do you need me to describe uniformitarianism?
Then what is it then? Because that's what I understand it to be.
Uniformitarianism is the assumption that it's more likely that things that are occurring today will be the same tomorrow than it was yesterday. More likely.
That's exactly what I said now, wasn't
it? Yes. So it is more likely, yes.
So why wouldn't you just answer it rather than have to go through all that crap?
Because you're talking about absolutisms.
Because, again, we can't tell you exactly what happened in the past.
So
we can make inferences about what happens today and say, yes, this is what I believe will happen tomorrow. But you can't look in the past and know and say that that worked that way. You can't do it.
How do we have predictive modeling then? How can we say predictive modeling?
We have predictive modeling from what we see and work with today.
Why?
Because we see how it works today.
And
we have no clue of how it worked yesterday, unless you're actually tracking it. But 1,000 years ago, you got no shot of knowing how things work.
You're saying that predictive modeling can be violated at any time for any reason.
Well, I'm saying that what you're saying about uniformitarianism is crap. Because we cannot say for a fact that these things have always done this. You can't say for a fact that, like the speed of light has always remained constant.
Yes, we can.
Like the deterioration of radiometric isotopes. You can say all these different things.
We can say it's a fact.
You don't know because you weren't there.
Can I ask?
One second, and then I'll turn it over to you. We don't have to be there. We can use science to demonstrate that the speed of light and other metrics are constant to 1.8 billion years ago. We can use science and physics for this. We use natural reactors to calibrate what we know about the fine structure constant and then how it integrates with the magnetic and electric constants. So yes, we can use actual science to demonstrate this. What Hillbilly is saying is literally that he doesn't accept uniformitarianism and does not have the intelligence to understand without the assumption and presupposition of uniformitarianism, we cannot have predictive modeling. It is not possible because predictive modeling says this is how something is going to happen because of this. So gravity would go on. The theory of gravity would be shot without accepting uniformitarianism.
No, I disagree wholeheartedly.
Well,
we can observe gravity right now. We can observe different things going from, the one thing that I really get, you're going to say that everything worked 1,000 years ago the way it does today. Well, it just don't work that way. Because, again, if you look at these things, we can make predictive models based on what we see today, what we have gleaned from yesterday, and yes, maybe even the day before that. But when you're talking about 1,000 years ago, that don't work. When you look at the information bears out that, again, you're all believing in something that doesn't work.
Well, it works because, you know why it works?
It's the only darn science that doesn't believe in entropy, and you always want to say that there's no
for goodness
entropy.
sakes.
Wow. Okay, anyways.
That's so wrong. I just want to ask one thing.
Go ahead, Jake.
So, Hillbilly, do you believe that carbon and hydrogen atoms did not react with each other the same way 6,000 years ago as they do today?
I can't tell you because I wasn't there, but I do know who was.
So in other words,
the God of creation, the God of salvation, the God of the Bible. So
you're denying chemistry on its basic level, then?
No, I'm not. I'm telling you that I don't know. I can tell you how it reacts today. I can tell you how stuff works today based on what we have personally seen. But to sit there and say that this has always been that way 1,000 years ago, that's ridiculous. We can't know that.
Okay,
yes, we
folks, Hillbilly has just denied the basis, one of the very bases of chemistry, that we have certain reactions, and we know how they react and why they react that way. We understand the structure of the atom. So basically by saying that carbon... Shut up, Hillbilly, let me finish.
But what you're not seeing is it doesn't work that way.
Do develop some manners sometime in your life. I realize you're getting older, but it could happen. So what you're basically saying then is atoms were not structured, nor did they behave in the past as they do now. That's what you have to say that carbon and hydrogen would not react in the past as they do today. And there's a real problem with that, given that we are carbon-based life forms.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, yeah, he left. But the funniest thing is what you just said exactly right. If it did not, if the structures did not exist thousands of years ago, life would not exist. So it's
Exactly.
self-evident. It's self-evident. And Christian Hillbilly is so myopic and so incredibly asininely stupid in basic science. I mean, he's lower than fruit on the ground. That this is why I asked him when he said, "Oh, I was like, you learned something about science because you guys heard how he thinks science exists and how his observation. He's completely wrong." Why? Do you have something to add before I end this? Because it's kind of comical that I had the lowest, the second to worst fruit on the ground creationist in the community in here, next to Hurricane, in a video about fruit on the ground. So it's kind of apropos. But go ahead, Wyatt, finish it. Then I got to end this.
I wish Christian Hillbilly would be a little bit more respectful than what he has been. I do agree that we're probably using two different terms for the same name, which is uniformity of nature. What we do mean by that is gravity will always work the same as it has been. And it has to be assumed because it cannot be proven.
Correct.
Hume demonstrated this in his problem of induction. So
Yes.
It does have to be assumed before we can even begin into science.
You're absolutely right. Yes, I gotta end this. I'm sorry to end you so quickly because you're absolutely 100% correct, Wyatt, and that is what Christian Hillbilly doesn't understand. That he has such a misconception of science and how it works that he's trying to talk about the epistemological aspect of it and knowledge rather than what science can do for us as far as using by induction. So yeah, he doesn't get it. You're exactly right. We have to assume certain things. Again, if Hillbilly is right, then we could not say that life even existed 6,000 years ago.
Right.
So I'm going to end this. I'm going to sign off by saying that this was the Fruit Underground Creationist. My topic today was faith, hope, love. Seems like a very nice person. I hope that she continues in the community and continues to engage and learn because I think she's an honest person. I think she's extremely misled. I will give her the benefit of the doubt for that. She was more than welcome to come in here. I sent her the link and information. I don't know if she got it, but anyways, this is the second part of my series, and I want to thank you guys for coming in and joining me on it. Okay, and I'm going to end that with this, and then if you guys want to stick around, we can talk about something else real quick before I have to go. All right, good night, guys.